Tom can join us. Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our second special board budget meeting. Today is Thursday, April 7th. Before we begin, I want to say the Greater Victoria School District wishes to recognize and acknowledge the Esquimalt and Songhees nations on whose traditional territories we live, we learn, and we do our work. Can I have an approval of the agenda, please? Moved by Elaine. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Jordan. And I understand we have some amendments to tonight's agenda. I'm wondering just, I mean, we can do this one of two ways. We can, we know who the amendments are coming from. I'm wondering to either Nicole or Trustee Whitaker if they want to add the amendment specifically to the agenda, or if they want to go into the budget discussion and loop those into that. I'm quite fine with either. I just want to know which one you would prefer. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
I am fine with either way. I just want to know that I don't have to put it on the agenda, that I'm going to speak to it, or that I'm going to be timed to 3 minutes. So whatever it takes that I get the amount of time I need to have that discussion, I'm fine with. But just before we do that, because I don't know where else to ask this question, but it's just been bothering me and has been brought up by several people in the public. I'm just wondering if I can get clarification as to why tonight's meeting starts at 5 o'clock. We just don't.
Just before we go there, I just want to deal with the amendment piece first, because I haven't heard from Nicole. So Nicole, do you have a preference, or are you okay if we allow some time for discussion of the pieces that I know you and Trustee Whitaker are bringing when we do the overall budget discussion? Just wanting some guidance from you.
Yeah, no, thanks. I appreciate that. With my amendments, I prefer, because they're motions, to actually add them to the agenda between C1 and C2.
Right, yours are a little right. Sorry,
yeah.
It's been a bit of a day, so yeah, yours are. Okay, do you want to? Then Nicole, we'll deal with yours then. Do you want to read those? Just read the first into the record, the second into the record, and then we can move on in that
Sure.
in that fashion. Is that okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so the first motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to allocate $40,043 to the elementary strings program budget for 2022-23. Further, the superintendent shall work to explore a possible donation to fund the remaining elementary strings program budget required for the 2022-23 school year. The allocation of $40,043 will revert to the surplus available in 2022-23 if a donation is not confirmed by the 30th of April 2022.
Okay, thank you. Before we look to a seconder, I'm guessing this is a little bit tricky because it kind of does relate to our budget discussion, but then there's kind of a future component as well. And I suppose, and again, completely up to the board what they would like to do. My only concern is that if we pass, and we're just adding this as an amendment, so I guess this isn't making a commitment to this. Okay, never mind. I am thinking entirely too much about this. Do we have a seconder for this amendment? I think we're going to go in that direction. Okay, Trustee Whitaker, thank you. Is there any discussion about adding this first amendment to the agenda? And my apologies if I overthink things here. I've had quite the day. Any discussion? Elaine, go ahead, please.
Well, as you just said a little bit, it's allocating part of our discussion tonight to something that's tied to something that would happen after the budget is passed. So I'm not sure that it's in order in that regard. Yeah, I can't support it because it's too, I'm not going to use the word airy-fairy, but it's too abstract for what we're dealing with in front of us. So I can't support adding it to the agenda. It could come as a supplemental motion after the budget as something to talk about, but I can't see it being talked about in the sort of black and white of where we are tonight.
Sure. Thanks, Elaine. Any other comments? Nicole, I guess you didn't really get a chance to open. I'm sorry. You can go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't anticipate it would be a problem adding it to the agenda. I anticipated we would have a conversation when we're discussing the merits of the motion. But in terms of the issue of whether we add it to the agenda, I think that we can address any concerns that trustees may have about the allocation of the 40,000 contingent on receipt of a donation. And where that 40,000 would go if the donation is not received, or how it would be handled. And I think we would certainly benefit from having that discussion in the order of the agenda, rather than as an issue of being out of order. I don't think it is out of order. There's nothing patently incorrect or procedurally incorrect about the motion. But if someone can point to something that makes it procedurally incorrect to add, then I'd be happy to discuss that. But so I guess what I'm saying in shorthand is I think it's fine to put it on the agenda, although I anticipate there will be debate about its merits when we get there.
Nicole, if I
Should've
may,
been just close to 5 o'clock or a little bit after.
Oh, Kim, we can
I
hear
thought
you.
of that. Oh, sorry.
Nicole, I think, and if I can ask just a clarifying question, I think I appreciate where my own confusion was coming from and where maybe Elaine's challenge is coming from, because what this is asking us to do is consider the allocation of a specific amount that we are still to debate in the budget. And if something happens to that amount in the budget debate, and we've added this as an amendment to the agenda, let's say, for example, this is later on in the agenda and that 40,043 is no longer there, it's a smaller amount, or something happens to it and it's allocated, then what would happen to this motion? So I could you just maybe clarify how you were expecting this to play out? Because I tend to agree. I don't think this is out of order, but I do have a concern around how we navigate the allocation in this motion if that isn't there. So can you maybe help walk us through that a bit?
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Yeah, no, I think, well, I suppose, first of all, I was going to propose that we add this motion under C1. So before we get to C2, but in whatever order, if the board considers this motion after it's already had further discussion about some of the items related to the budget, and for instance, then decides to allocate the $40,043 to something else, then I think what we'd be looking at is an amendment or I would be looking to amend the motion. Because really what I'm trying to achieve is some kind of a board contribution, whatever that looks like, as a sign of good faith that the board is committed to providing the program should we receive the additional funding for this next year. So I think there's ways around it. I don't think that, again, is procedurally problematic to add it to the agenda, but I take your point that there may be a few amendments required, or depending on where this sits on our agenda.
Sure. And I think I heard you say C1. I think you meant B1, and maybe I misheard you.
No, I did say C. So maybe I'm looking, well, I'll defer to you because I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I can call it up.
Yeah, I think if you mean at the very beginning of the annual budget bylaw discussion tonight, third reading comes up at B1. So I think you want this.
Oh, does it? I
at
thought
B1.
there was public correspondence. So sorry if I
maybe I'm looking at the wrong agenda.
I think you're looking at
yeah, we had an updated agenda come from staff at some point today.
It is all on me then. Just bear with me, folks, and I will get the right agenda up. My apologies. It would just add to the fun of the day that I have had. Where are we here?
What time did we get a new agenda? Sorry, I might be running off the old one.
Yeah, I can't find, sorry, I'm so sorry. Can staff maybe forward the new agenda to trustees really? Because I can't find it.
I got it. 356.
Well, maybe just to me then.
356.
Yeah, thanks. I hear you. I'm not finding it in my emails. So I'll just hang tight while someone forwards that to me. In the meantime, we can still discuss this this amendment, assuming C1 is where we're going to go with it if it passes. Any further discussion on adding this amendment? Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
I think it's premature for us to determine whether or not it's going to be a problem before we have gone through the discussions. I think it should be added to the agenda. And when we get there, we can debate and discuss whether it is an issue or not. I think right now, before those discussions, determining that it is out of order is predetermining the discussions that.
So yeah, I've already determined it's not out of order. So that's my prerogative as chair. So I've made that determination. It's in order. So now it's really just on the merits of the motion itself. Sorry, just wanted to make that clear.
No, we're discussing the merits of adding it to the agenda, not the merits of the motion is my point. I think it's fine to put it on the agenda because we will discuss the merits of the motion when it comes up.
Yes, and I'm saying I think the question about whether or not it's out of order to be added to the agenda is not accurate. It is in order to be added is what I'm saying. So can we have any further discussion on adding this to the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on amending the agenda to add Nicole's motion. All those in favor? And those opposed? And that is carried with Elaine and Tom opposed. So that is added. Thanks. And Nicole, you have another amendment. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so, and then the second motion is that the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to carry out a music program review during the 2022-23 school year in consultation with the GBTA, music teachers, and appropriate members of our learning community to identify options and make recommendations to the Board of Education regarding the provision of music programs in the school district with a special focus on access and funding.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Whitaker. Any discussion on amending the agenda to add this motion? Elaine and then Jordan.
So I don't mind voting in favor of it. I just want to know where it would be placed on the agenda, because from my understanding, it's not connected to the monetary amounts. So I just need to know ahead of time before I'm voting if it's after the budget bylaw has passed, because it's reflecting something to happen after. Like
Nicole, would you feel comfortable adding it to the end of business arising after the motion about the 2.3 million unrestricted carry forward?
I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, it seems reasonable.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah, thanks, Elaine. Jordan?
I'm just wondering about adding all sort of the supplementary motions that come out of the budget process. I know last year we had a separate meeting where it went to the board meeting. So I'm just like, are we putting everything we want to do on this agenda, or is there space for it to come forward in another way? I don't know. I just think some of this, it would be nice for us to have opportunities to consider. And I know I have some things that I wanted to bring forward, but I was expecting a different process. And then I also know that the staff and public haven't had a whole lot of time to consider what's coming forward and provide input. So
ultimately, it's up to the board and how it would like to move forward with supplementary motions for consideration after the budget. I can say personally, if trustees want to bring this is a special budget meeting. This meeting is intended to discuss the budget. I think personally, any motions that arise from our budget discussion that are relevant to the budget could come tonight. Although that wasn't made clear to trustees. So I think it is reasonable that if trustees want, tonight is a place that these could be considered, or we could consider them at the board meeting at the end of the month. I think both are very reasonable alternatives and options. But again, it's totally up to the board if that's how they would like to proceed. Any comments or questions on that, Trustee Whitaker?
I think it's fine to add to the agenda. If we find we're going late, we can always table this to the next board meeting, which in the past, like we've had far more budget meetings at board meetings. So that would be not out of our normal practices, where these would, as Trustee Waters has mentioned, that we would be discussing these in phases. But I think it's fine to add it to the agenda. And if that is the case, we can move it on. It won't get lost.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Trustee Whitaker, and I am completely, and I hope other trustees would be fine as well, if we have some things tonight and then have some things on the 25th as well, which is when our board meeting is. I think we can be flexible for both of those. Jordan, does that answer your question?
Sure, then I think Anne had stuff to add to the agenda, and then I'll put myself on the list because I have some things.
Yeah, and I think Anne was just hopeful that because hers were very much budget discussion pieces for moving around, that she would have time to bring those to the budget. And I'm absolutely, now that I'm aware that that's what she would like, can give a lot of time to that.
Can I put myself as the place marker if there are others who are, so I'm first and then go second? I mean, I'm just looking to make sure I don't get kicked off.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So when we come to actually discussing moving things around, we have yours ahead of time. We know you'd like to bring them up right away. I've got lots of forewarning about that. So I think that's fine. Okay, so we have gone to that. Jordan, I'll go to you to have any additions that you would like for this evening for motions arising from the budget.
Yeah, I'd like to motion for the Greater Victoria School Board to reinvigorate the Greater Victoria Foundation for Learning.
Okay.
And then secondly, I'd like to see us write a letter of advocacy, whether that takes the form of a needs budget or otherwise, but I think we should report out to the provincial government around what we've had to, the cuts we've had to make, and the concern we've heard from our communities.
Okay.
So I can put that into motion form, but if I could have a placeholder around directing the chair to write a letter of advocacy to the provincial, to the Minister of Education, I suppose.
And that would either be in the form of a needs budget or another form to be determined. I'm guessing you're allowing some flexibility there, if I'm understanding you properly. And can, sorry,
just ask a point of clarification.
Just Trustee Whitaker, just 1 sec, not quite done. And Jordan, sorry, can you run the first one by us again, just so that we have clarity on that one?
The board reinvigorate the Greater Victoria Foundation for Learning.
Okay, excellent. If trustees are okay moving those, so Jordan, are you moving those as kind of combined
amendments to our agenda, if that's how,
Sure.
how we're doing things? Yeah.
Yep. So do I have a seconder to bring both of those into the agenda discussion tonight? Trustee Hensa, thank you. Trustee Whitaker, you had a point of clarification. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, my understanding with the needs budget was that this was actually something we're already scheduled to do, and it was assigned to the budget committee that after we do this, that we would be doing a needs budget in writing, was my understanding. So maybe somebody can look up the past motions and see what's gone on there. I just feel like this would be a duplication, but we can debate that, I guess, when the motion comes up.
Yeah, or if Secretary Treasurer Morris has a comment or clarification to provide.
Yeah, and if it's already on the books, I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that this board is advocating.
Yeah. Kim?
I believe the last year's needs budget motion was part of last year's budget process and was referred to advocacy, I believe, and then may have come back. Other than that, if it was discussed at committee, it would still need to be endorsed by the board through a board motion in order to go forward with it.
Okay, thank you. Nicole?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify on that point that there is a board motion and it went to advocacy, and then I believe it was by consent of the board to the budget advocacy ad hoc committee, or the budget advisory committee. So I can trace it back while we're getting through our agenda if that's helpful, but it is still on the books and we haven't completed it yet.
Okay. Why don't we park that then, and we can get some clarification around where that sits. But in the meantime, we do have a motion on both of these pieces, which I think are relevant. So any other discussion on the foundation and then the advocacy piece, which could be a letter or could be the needs budget? I don't think we've gone to a specific direction there. Nicole, I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I just, before we lose the strand, I also just wanted to highlight that we do have a electric bus motion from last year on the books. It was the Canada Infrastructure Grant motion from the 24th of June, 2021 for $190,093. The board directed staff to get a low interest loan to cover that portion for the electric buses. And we've taken a different approach, I understand, and paid for it. But we still have a motion on the books that we really just need to rescind. And so I in order to clean everything up and tie it up in a bow tonight, I'm wondering whether we should be adding a motion to rescind that on this agenda before the budget is passed. So I guess I'm asking for some direction from staff through the chair on how to handle that piece, whether we do it tonight or whether we do it later.
Sure. Kim, is that something you predict or foresee us doing tonight, or perhaps at a future ops? Or well, I guess it's the board's motion. So
yeah, I did not foresee us doing that tonight, and so would rather do that on the 25th or bring it through ops to the 25th if possible.
If it's something that if it's the board's motion, it probably should come back to the board itself. So Nicole, would we be okay to do that on the 25th to rescind that then? I think just give us some time and allow staff some time to pull that forward.
Yeah, no, if it's not a problem, us passing a budget, I don't know if it's in the budget, that item, or if it's just already been spent this last financial year. So I suppose it isn't directly relevant to this budget discussion, but rather to the last. So yeah, however they want to handle it, I'm absolutely fine with. I just want to make sure we don't lose that it's on the books and it wasn't done. Yep. So we need to rescind it.
Thanks for keeping an eye on that. Any further discussion on the foundation or the advocacy piece? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call the question on amending the agenda to add both of those motions for this evening. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Trustee Whitaker, please.
Yeah, I just want to loop back because I've been asked by several individuals over the last day or two as to what was the logic behind us starting this meeting at 5 o'clock. It's obviously very difficult to get to from work, and anyway, it's certainly left the public out of viewing this live. So anyway, just would like to hear an answer as to what happened there.
Okay, Kim or Deb?
I believe that both budget meetings were scheduled for 5 o'clock, including Mondays. Given the fact that we wanted to provide some presentation times for the public, we swapped the 7 o'clock and the 7 o'clock Ed Committee meeting and the budget meeting, which was supposed to start at 5. And I believe these are in line with the starting times of our actual budget committee meetings. Not that there's any need to do that, but I think that was the pattern.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Whitaker, follow up?
I guess I would just say that, going forward, when we do meetings that are of such impact to the public, that it's really important to understand who our audience is and acknowledge that in our timing. 5 o'clock, I had to go to work 2 hours early so that I could leave on time to be at this meeting. The board very rarely meets at 5 o'clock if, it's only been in the last little while. So I just hope as we go forward that will be more conducive, I guess, to our public and their ability to participate and to view these meetings.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on the agenda? Seeing and hearing none, can I get we have a motion to approve. So all those in favor of approving the agenda for this evening, please signify. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, everybody. We have correspondence, April 1st to April 5th, 2022, public correspondence regarding the budget. Any discussion on that item? Seeing none, we'll go to C, annual budget 2022-2023. I believe we do have a budget engagement feedback, but Kim, did you want to update on C1 or at C2? Where did you want to give your update? We can do the engagement piece first, or we can go into your piece first.
The engagement, can you hear me? Sorry, I can't
Yep.
see. The engagement piece is just sort of the correspondence is where people ask for their correspondence to be on the packet. And the budget engagement feedback is essentially the same. It's just received through community inbox and redacted a little more, where people did not ask to be on the packet, but sent feedback. So there's really nothing to report on C1. It's just more information in companion with B1.
Okay, thank you. Then we can go into C2, budget bylaw readings, third reading. Before we go into third reading and debate, I believe Kim has some updates for us. So Kim, I'll turn it over to you.
Right. So between our meeting Monday night and I think Tuesday or Wednesday, we received a retirement from the HR person's position, and they'll be retiring at the end of September of this year. So the HR reduction that we said would be done in year 2 or 3 only through attrition can be done in year 1 in 22-23 if the board so wishes to move it over to the savings side.
Sorry, any questions or clarification with that new information? I know we've just received it, so feel free to, yeah, sorry, Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Sorry, through the chair to the Secretary Treasurer, just because I got so many screens going on and I don't want to lose where I'm at. Can you remind me what that dollar value was? I think it was 78. Am I correct?
66945.
Thank you. Obviously, I was wrong.
Lots of numbers. Any other comments or questions on the new info we've received from staff? All right, seeing and hearing none. Let us go into Nicole's motion. Or wait, hold on. No, sorry. We're putting that to the end of the business arising. No, sorry. We've put it to the beginning. I told y'all, I've had a busy day. My head is all over the place. Nicole, I believe we have your amendment first, which is around the 40,043 to elementary strings. Is that correct? Please tell me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right. Yeah.
All right. I'll go to you first.
Yeah, you have.
I'll go to you first.
So yeah, so I guess what I wanted to do was to provide an opportunity for the board to make a contribution to elementary strings for the next financial year, and potentially take advantage of an opportunity that has come up in the community, or a potential opportunity that's come up in the community in the way of a foundation that may be able to fund, may be interested in funding the rest of our budget needs around elementary strings. And so this motion really is to help us to make a contribution to show our good faith that we want to support the program into the next school year. And also then to provide some direction to the superintendent, who would, be required to reach out and to have those discussions with the foundation. But appreciating that we do have some timelines associated with delivering the program, and staffing in particular that starts up in May. And so wanting to respect those timelines, what I've tried to do in the motion is include a deadline. So for those discussions to occur with the potential foundation by the end of April, so that if it isn't a go, or if it is, and there's staffing implications, that we are in good stead to undertake the staffing protocols in May that we normally would. In terms of the 40,000, I also tried in the motion to set out again, a path for the board to take should that negotiation or should the donation not come to fruition. The path for that money would be back basically into surplus for us to look at it in the future when we either do a revised budget or through a motion that either staff or a trustee could bring to redirect that money during the financial year. So what I don't want us to do is to miss an opportunity to fund elementary strings for this year. My hope is that the motion that we'll be considering later tonight around a program review will give us a path forward when it comes to determining how we can continue to provide elementary strings and potentially increase access and address some of the funding concerns moving forward through that process. So it gives us a little breathing space to undertake a program review and ensures that we, during this sort of unprecedented time of austerity, that we don't end up unnecessarily closing down an entire program without having the opportunity to do a program review or look at other options. So I hope that the board will support this path and this potential opportunity.
Thanks, Nicole. Trustee Whitaker, I know you did second the motion, so I'm happy to go to you if you would like to motivate around this as well.
Well, first I would just like to thank Trustee Duncan and folks for pounding the pavement and finding a very significant potential donation for our district. I think that is just fabulous. And as Trustee Waters is discussing invigorating the foundation, what a way to start that off, right? With a $40,000 donation. And I appreciate that, I feel like people have pounded the pavement and in a very short time come up with this funding. And it sounds like the type of thing that we should do where we're leveraging some of our funds in order to double them and to increase them. And I must admit that I've been very challenged with not doing a program review. I think when we look at one level of information, it appears that this is the direction that we should go. But when we look deeper, we often find other things that are significant and important that maybe we can improve upon or find different directions. So I'm in support of this because I really also think that the foundation should be utilized a great deal more. And that only happens through foundations and through donations and restricting those funds to where the donor wants to give them. And if we have a donor that wants to support elementary strings, I am certainly not going to turn that money away. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just as a reminder, trustees, we have a lot of flexibility here. I'm not going to hold people to one speaking moment per motion. I want fluid conversation here. So if you want to talk more, that option is on the table. Tom, I saw you, and then Elaine, and then I think I saw Jordan as well. So Tom first.
Great, thank you. I like the idea of this, and I was involved in instigating the foundation years ago, and our board was at that time not prepared to accept private money in a public institution, so it never did get anywhere. And my hope is that in my retirement, I can devote some time to raising money for the foundation if the board is willing to go that direction. I do have some concern about I don't know that we actually have the ability to give away board money. Now I know the foundation would be directing money to the district, but I do see a bit of a gray area there. And so I personally would have a hard time supporting this motion unless I were absolutely certain that this is something we can do with public money. My guess is that the foundation, if it raised money, would be raising money to be utilized outside the curriculum day, like the teaching day. So it is all a bit murky. And while I'd like to pursue this, I don't know that I want to pursue it tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Nicole, I see you, but I'm going to go to Elaine first, if that's okay. And then Jordan, or did you have a clarifying question you wanted to add? Okay, I kind of thought so. So yeah, go ahead. And then I'm going to.
I think it might actually affect others about ability to debate this.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify something.
Yep.
so first of all, the 40,000 wouldn't be donated through the foundation. It would be board money that would be put into the program budget for strings, elementary strings. So, and the donation from the foundation could be made directly to the district, and the district could provide a tax receipt for that. So just wanted to clarify that, you know, any concerns so that we can, keep that in mind as we're debating.
Thanks for that clarity. So the clarity is that the 40,043 would be put by us into strings and then trying to seek the balance through fundraising through the foundation. Elaine and then Jordan.
As well as Tom, I was on the starting the foundation many years ago, and we always said that it was not for ongoing staffing costs. It was for a program or an activity that was a one-time only, a summer school program, a reading program, something that was finite and not staffing. So it is an issue when you're relying on donations for staffing and you have to then commit if the donations don't come in. So I at this point in time, I can't support that. It does sound like Trustee Duncan does know who out there might be contributing, and maybe she's able to share that with us. But so what happens in the second year and what happens after the first year? If you've made the commitment to keep it based on the fact that you've accepted donations in the beginning, are we back at this table again next year talking about what happens after this year? So that is the problem with ongoing costs and accepting donations for staffing, which is an ongoing cost to the district, and it's not a one-time only. So I have been down this road before, and so I can't support this the way it is right now.
And Nicole, I'm guessing there's a follow-up that you would like. Go ahead.
Well, I'm happy to just wait to the end, or if
Sure.
it helps to kind of provide clarity as we go and have more of a free-flowing discussion.
No, you go ahead, Lil. We're just gonna scat this through. So go ahead.
Okay. So what I would say is, again, just as a point of clarity, I deliberately didn't include the name of the foundation in the motion, in the public motion, because I don't want to put any kind of undue pressure on the foundation before it has an opportunity to undertake its sort of analysis of this. But that being said, the idea is to cut. I mean, we're in a position where we're saying we're going to cut the program. And so this is a unique situation that we're in, and we have a small window of opportunity for 1 year to commit funds to keep the program alive and going while we undertake a program review. So I'm not proposing that the board commit, beyond this year to this approach. What I'm saying is that this is a unique opportunity at a time when we really need support to keep the program going while we do a program review. I fully expect that a program review will come back to the board and provide some recommendations around how we can increase access and how we can fund the program moving forward. I'm not proposing that this kind of funding arrangement be used beyond this financial year.
Thanks, Nicole. Jordan? And I'm going to put
Can
myself
you remind me-
on the speaker's list. Sorry.
Can you
go ahead.
remind me what the specific motion is that we're speaking to here?
Yeah, I can. I've got it in front of me, Nicole, if that's okay, I can read it out. Yeah, so that the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to allocate $40,043 to the elementary strings program budget for 2022-2023. Further, the superintendent shall work to explore a possible donation to fund the remaining elementary strings program budget required for the 2022-2023 school year. The allocation of $40,043 will revert to the surplus available in 2022-23 if a donation is not confirmed by the 30th of April, 2022. Jordan, go ahead.
I guess I'd like to hear from the superintendent on how this could possibly work, because it just seems like I understand what Trustee Duncan's trying to achieve. There is a lot of gray here, and I'm not sure how how all of this could work. I also, have ideas around where I'd like to see that money allocated, which is coloring my perspective in some ways, but I'd love to hear from the superintendent on the actionability of this motion, what that would look like in practice, I suppose.
Thanks. Deb, over to you.
Yeah, I think I'll start and then I'll pass it also over to Secretary Treasurer Morris. I obviously will follow the board direction on this, and I'm happy to speak to a foundation about money coming in. I also recognize the work that the board has done to look at equity of opportunity for all students. And so I would want to, in this, ensure that opportunity is available across the district. And again, that's not equal as we've spoken about, but that is equitable opportunity. So that would be one thing that I would be hoping to address with the foundation should it come forward, and obviously dealing with that within the district.
Thanks, Deb. Jordan, any follow-up?
Yeah, maybe the Secretary Treasurer could just address the
sorry.
accounting side of it.
Sorry, go ahead, Kim.
So I think throughout our processes, we've been indicating that staffing will happen between May and June, and that is requires quite a bit of lead time. So in fact, we set these third reading budget timelines to be the 4th and the 7th so that we could wrap up third reading today, because staffing pack-ups go out tomorrow, depending on the decisions made tonight. So while the staffing processes such as post and fill and layoff, if any, and things like that happen during May and June, there's a significant amount of work that the system has to do in terms of principals, vice principals reviewing their pack-ups and determining what staff is surplus to needs or will be staying, and then returning that to financial services in order for human resources to get going by May 1st with some of the actual collective agreement processes. So just not to say that staffing starts May 1st, there's quite a significant lead time before those actual HR structures get into place. So just a heads up there.
So sorry if I can, Kim, in a situation like this, if a motion like this were to pass, what does that do to staffing pack-ups which are planned to go out tomorrow? What does that, because this motion assumes that if we don't get the donation by the end of this month, April 30th, that the 40,000 reverts to surplus. So would you have to wait until the end of the month, or because it's just 1.81 FTE, you're just dealing with that portion? Can you just clarify what that would look like?
So we are right now in the first and second reading, we have the 1.81 as a savings in the operating budget, moving 40,000 into, I don't know, some kind of holding or surplus right now. Until April 30th is no problem, but we have an unbalanced budget, or we maintain the cut of 1.81 FTE and carry on with staffing processes under that. And then if the donation comes through, the board can debate whether it wants to carry on with strings, or it has that debate tonight pending the foundation donation. But we remember last year with the comings and goings of the budget, how many times we had to staff. So staffing pack-ups are going to go out depending on what you do with staffing in your third reading. And so right now you have that 1.81 on the savings side, and the 40,000 doesn't leave the budget balanced if we don't do that staffing reduction. And so we would be, if that stays on the left-hand side of the sheet, we'll be moving forward with those pack-ups tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Whitaker. And then Jordan, I don't think you quite finished your piece, but I'll come to you after Trustee Whitaker. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yep, Jordan, go ahead.
Thank you, Superintendent and Secretary Treasurer. That is helpful. While I appreciate where this is going, I'm not going to support it because I want to have a broader discussion about how we can allocate that $40,000. And I think if we move forward with the foundation or a review, that'll give us sort of an opening to address these questions. But it feels a little too soon in terms of this discussion to be committing that money.
Okay, thank you.
And it creates an unbalanced budget, which is a concern given our guiding principles around the timeline. Thank you.
Thanks, Jordan. And sorry to step on your toes there. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Thank you. So noting that this is a 1.8 position or 1.8 of a position, I'm not really concerned about where this might leave us with staffing backups. I don't think it's going to have any significant effect. I'm not worried about the balanced budget. My suggestion would be to take the 40,000 and tag it to reserves, and then it actually has zero implications to the budgeting. As we move forward, then we can determine to take that $40,000 from our reserves if we do receive the donation of the other matching funds of $40,000, which would allow us to move forward. My fear in the conversation that I'm starting to hear now is I'm seeing $40,000 disappear, losing the opportunity to really establish the foundation as another source of revenue for programs for our students that we could use. And as Trustee Duncan says, this isn't, I don't believe it's expected to be a long-term solution. It's intended to be something so that we can do a review and really understand better what are the needs, what are the wants, and what's doable within our music program, and how do we make that serve our students better. I think that there's a lot of issues within the music program that occurred when we went from the K-7 to the K-5 model, and it would do well. I know that we have tried through a middle school review to touch on some of that, but it was not a music review. It was a middle school review, and it pointed out that there were challenges within the middle school model of music. And again, I believe that those have come to how we restructured the district from a K-7 to a K-5. And it would serve us very well to do a review and see how can we do better. We did really well then, and we managed to get everything up off the ground, but now we're starting to see some of the issues. And I think that there are solutions out there that see things in an equitable way and also see students able to participate in music in many different ways, but we just haven't had the opportunity to reach out to more stakeholders, more minds that would just have more creativity. We are definitely, with the challenges that we face with this budget, we have a certain mindset, a bias, a concern. So how wonderful would it be if that pressure was taken off and we could look at that information in a different light, one that is from a positive place rather than we have to get rid of things. So for me, I'm going to continue to support this. I think it would be fine that we continue with the staffing backups, and when, it's 2 weeks, literally, well, maybe 2.5 weeks until we would find out, probably sooner. I'm sure that discussions are already happening. And, how excited somebody who thought that they were being laid off from strings would be when they discovered that we got the funding and we were going to go forward with this. I don't think in any way is this going to affect the principals looking at their staffing all that much. It's 1.8. It's like a few hours in each school. So those are my thoughts on it. I'm very concerned that we're going to lose this opportunity. So I just hope that people would be able to find a placeholder for this, whether it's just take it from the reserves as it's a flag for $40,000. If we don't get the other 40, then we've just got more money in our reserves. And at 1.9 million in reserves, it seems reasonable.
Okay, thank you. I saw Kim put her hand up during Trustee Whitaker's comments. So I just want to go to the Secretary Treasurer.
So for clarification, the 1.8 FTE currently on the balancing side of the spreadsheet, which means a reduction in FTE, spans 15 schools where principals would receive their pack-up and be making staff surplus to needs and finding them other positions. And we know this happened once or twice, or more, at least twice, if not 3 times last spring. And it's a huge ripple for 15 schools trying to staff or make surplus to needs or find positions for 15 different part-time positions. And so simply adding and the other clarification, just so people are aware, adding the 40,000 to reserve and balancing the budget tonight still means that the 1.81 is a savings and would be in the pack-ups tomorrow.
Thank you. Kim, Nicole?
Yeah, so just a couple of things I just wanted to add. So just to be clear, with the $40,000 and $43, the balance for the program to be fully funded would be about $168,000. And so that would be, what we'd be looking for from the foundation in the way of a donation. I suppose, I'm hearing some of the concerns and some of the logistical challenges, and I'm not, I'm not going to debate the extent to which there are some logistical challenges. I think we saw those last year. We didn't approve a budget until June. We managed, so I guess what I'm looking for tonight is solutions. I'm looking for ways in which, us all pooling our considerable intellect and expertise around this table, and to find solutions for how we can take advantage of this opportunity for the year to allow us to undertake a program review rather than essentially getting rid of an entire program that is subscribed. I did manage to clarify by about 630 students across the 15 elementary schools at a cost of 1.8 FTE, which is, incredible value for money. And we know our students those 600 or so students that are involved, get a great deal out of their involvement. And I think, if anything, given the success of the program, looking at ways where we can shore up funding, where we could provide more access, where we could provide that at other schools. I'd like to see us do that work, and this would allow us to do it without losing a program and losing the staffing. So I hope that I start to hear some, potential solutions that might help us to do, meet our obligations in terms of balanced budget. And if it means moving the 40,000 to a different side of the balance sheet or to a different part of the balance sheet in the meantime, over the next couple of weeks while we try to see this through, then so be it. And while I appreciate that there is some logistical challenge in terms of staffing backups, I hope that I hope that we see the benefit outweighs those challenges, and that we can find some solutions tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole. I have an amendment that I want to bring to this that I don't know if this solves the issue that we're trying to solve here, but I'm going to propose it anyways and see how the board feels. So I want to amend the motion to strike everything. So it'll everything from the first superintendent. So starting at 2, all the way to.
Can you share your screen? Is it possible?
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can. I can paste it in the chat. Oh no, I can't do that either. Can I share my screen?
Can you just read out what you're proposing?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, let me read that out. I can save everyone from a considerable headache. So I want to amend the motion essentially to say that the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to work to explore a possible donation or donations to fund the remaining elementary strings program budget required for the 2022-2023 school year. So essentially striking the first part of the motion and the last part of the motion. And if I have a seconder, I can motivate and explain my rationale, but it will depend on.
Can I ask a point of clarification on that?
It needs to be seconded first. Okay, Jordan, go ahead. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
So, and maybe through the chair to Trustee Duncan, and because I don't have it in front of me, it sounds like what you've done is taken away the $40,000 piece. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so then I need to, through the chair to Trustee Duncan, is this donation possibility not a matching? So how would we then get to that place? Or maybe it is through the Secretary Treasurer. If we remove that matching piece when negotiations are happening and they're going, I'm going to give you $40,000, you just have to match it. How do we then address that piece? if we're not putting it in the budget now? Is there the opportunity to then have that discussion and divert some funds from somewhere else?
Sorry, Trustee Whitaker, I have to jump in. And perhaps there's information that other trustees have that I don't. I don't see anything in this motion that talks about matching or anything like that. So I'm not sure what you're referring to.
I don't have the motion in front of me either. That's why I was asking for
Okay,
clarification.
I'm sorry. Nicole, go ahead.
So yeah, so just for clarity, so it's not a situation of matching. It would be a contribution from us as a sign of basically of good faith, goodwill, that we want to support the program. And the 40,000, I think, is about 20%, and it just happened to be also what we have left to work with as of our last meeting on this. And then the second part that's been removed by this amendment would be the timeline. So it removes the end of April timeline.
You know what? You're right. My apologies, Nicole. It would need to that part of the amendment would need to stay in because we do want it to be by the end of the month. So the motion would read that the Board of Education of School District Number 61 direct the superintendent to work to explore a possible donation or donations to fund the remaining elementary strings program budget required for the 2022-2023 school year with a deadline of April 30th, 2022. That would be the motion. So just clarifying that there is an end cap on that. I haven't had a chance to motivate on it yet, so I just want to explain my rationale here so my colleagues can understand what I'm trying to do. The 40,043, I think we need to keep that within our current budget discussion. And I understand that there is some, and this is kind of was my challenge with this at the outset. This portion is a part of our main budget debate discussion tonight, whether or not it is combined with the now 66,000 that we understand we have with potential HR savings. I mean, there are some discussions that need to happen with those two pieces. And as well, Trustee Whitaker has some motions that she's brought as well that I think could involve this. I don't want to prejudice those discussions by allocating this money to something before we've had an opportunity to go there. So my desire to remove that, but maintain the core thrust of this motion, which I understand, and I hope I'm hearing this right, is the desire to work through the superintendent as a district, through the foundation, to try to find donation or donations to maintain the current elementary strings program. And then hopefully, and again, I can't presume what will happen in the future, but if there is a desire to expand, allow that opportunity to happen, but it can't expand if it doesn't exist. So that's my rationale for trying to see if I can find a middle way to make this work. Anyways, that is my hope. So I'll turn to the trustees for any discussion. Elaine and then Tom.
So the way it was, the wording that you just had, and then it goes back to the wording that's in Nicole's original motion. I'm not comfortable asking the superintendent to go out and solicit and look for funds to fund some of our staffing in the district. So Nicole has led us to believe that she knows of a foundation that wants to step forward, but the way the motion is reading, should they not come forward, we're still directing the superintendent to go and out in the streets and look for funds from whomever to fund this program. And I don't really think that's the role of our superintendent, is to go out to fund a specific program and to go out hat in hand and say, hey, we need this money to pay for 1.81 teachers in our district to staff this program. I don't think that's the role of our superintendent. So the wording of this is really, really problematic for me, because although I think Nicole has somebody in mind, should that not come to fruition, the motion is still directing the superintendent, because it doesn't say a specific foundation, to go out and look for money. And I don't think that's her role. So I can't support this.
Sure. Thanks, Lane. Appreciate it. Tom?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, no, we can't direct the superintendent to raise money. No, I don't think we can do that. The foundation is is separate from the district. It's not part of the district. It's called the School District Foundation, but it is actually separate. And if it actually were activated, it would take on members who would theoretically be good at fundraising, and the foundation would do the fundraising, and the district would have nothing to do with that. But I think Nicole was thinking of a different foundation, and I don't, in whatever that may be, but whatever the case, I don't think that we can, the superintendent has a specific role, and that's the operation of the district. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Any other comments? Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
I guess I just have a question because I guess I'm getting a better understanding of what's going on here. And so I maybe the question to trustees is not about the money and the budget, but if we had a funder who was willing to come up with, 75% of the funding for the strings program, would we be willing to fund the other 25%? And do we have to make that decision tonight within this budget, because it is sort of variant on other things? Or would this board be willing to allow the trying to get this donation, knowing that if the 75% of that funding was received, that we would be looking to dip into the reserves to cover the other 25%, which I believe is, I don't know, it's like what, 40, I don't know if it is that 40,000, or if somebody can bang off that number for me, but yeah.
168,000 if we were to put 20% forward, yeah.
For us to pay is 168 or?
No, so the donation we're looking for would be around 168,000, with us as a board contributing 20% of the cost of the program, which is about 40,000.
40,000, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's really the question. I don't know if the motion is worded the right way. And I guess because I think that's what the question really is. And I know that there's all these other budget discussions to come. If that is really the question, should we table this until after we have had those discussions, so that then we have a clear understanding of what's left, so that really then the discussion is, are we willing to, if that 75% comes forward, to put forward the other 25%? So I'm adding to the discussion.
Sure.
I
Sure.
guess, I don't know.
Yeah, but I appreciate that there is an amendment to this main motion on the floor that I appreciate your comments, but we do have an amendment that I think we still have to deal with in terms of what happens with that. That's up to the board. Jordan, and then Nicole.
I appreciate the amendment and what you're trying to do, but again, for me, it feels wrong on quite a few levels to be raising funds to pay for staffing. Like, that is not sustainable, and it creates pretty significant uncertainty. However, bringing in funds is never a bad thing, but I do see that as being the job of the foundation more so than our educational leaders in the district. So I'm not going to support this. Yeah, and I'm hoping that we can move forward so that we can have some discussions on some other stuff, whether that's by tabling this or however
Sure.
You want to do it. But I know we've got
yeah, we're at 6 o'clock, so
yeah, there's lots more to discuss.
There's lots more to come. Yeah. Nicole.
So can I put forward
sorry.
a motion to table this then until after our other budget discussions?
Possibly, but I want to go to Nicole first and just see if, because she had her hand up, so I want to respect that she had maybe a comment question, or she can pass it back to you, Trustee Whitaker. Nicole?
I just wanted to, yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to speak to the amendment briefly. I mean, I just, first of all, I completely understand and appreciate the comments from Trustee Leonard and Ferris. I think that for me, there's not problematic deciding that we want to allocate this 40,000 to elementary strings, in the same way that we've allocated money to different things before we knew what the debate was going to, evolve into later on. So, we make decisions and, we might look back and go, boy, I wish we had considered something else first. But say la vie, that it was just the order of the agenda or the order of the discussion. So I don't, yeah, I can't support the amendment, but I do appreciate the spirit in which it was brought forward.
Thanks, Nicole. Trustee Whitaker, I hear you want to table or refer.
I want to
We
table to a
have-
specific time on. this.
Sure, we have an amendment though that is just on the floor. So I think we need to determine what we want to do with the amendment first, because we have a motion that's sitting there with an amendment to be decided. So are you okay if we just determine what to do with the amendment first, and then we can refer the original motion?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question unless there's any other comments on the amendment. So the amendment, again, that the Board of Education of School District number 61 direct the superintendent to work to explore possible donation or donations to fund the remaining elementary strings program budget required for the 2022-2023 school year, with a deadline of April 30th, 2022. All those in favor of the amendment, please signify. All those opposed? And is defeated. So we're back to the main motion.
Can I now
Trustee Whitaker.
table it? Let's
Yeah,
table
so-
it until after the discussion because we're just going in circles. And
Sure.
I think we need the other information of the
Yep.
budget. Thank
Okay,
you.
so Trustee Whitaker's moved to table until after the budget bylaw reading, or until later on in the budget bylaw reading, potentially a later period. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Jordan. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor of referring to a later time? Those opposed? And that carries with Nicole opposed. Okay, so now we can go to debating the budget, unless there's anything coming before that. I don't think there is. Okay, trustees, we are back to our Monday project that we left. We have a shortfall, or not a shortfall, we have a balance of $40,043 with an additional potential balance from an HR reduction of $66,945. I turn to trustees for any discussion. Jordan, go ahead. I see you, and then I'll go to Trustee Whitaker. So Jordan, go to you first. Sorry, you know what? My apologies, Jordan. I actually think I committed.
Yeah, no, I
Trustee
was just
Whitaker
gonna
to
say,
deal
go
with her
to
pieces
Ann first,
first.
but then I'd like to go after, because I have.
Yeah, so I
ideas.
want to make sure I follow through with that commitment. My apologies, Trustee Whitaker. I told you all I'm tired. So I'm going to let you have the floor, Trustee Whitaker. You have several pieces I know you'd like to move through. If we can move through each of those deliberatively and slowly for all of us, that would be really appreciated. But you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. And so I did break them down so that we can still adjust after. So the first one that I want to speak to is the EA hours. And I'm going to start with first, because I know we want to have money to start with. And so I would like to remove the spending of the VP admin time addition of the $326,340. And I would like to add the 20% of the ask that EAs had to increase the hours to 30 hours a week. And I would like to speak to that if I can, as to why I think that's important. It was a big part of the previous option six that I was trying to present, because I really think that this is important.
Sure.
I
So
don't
just to confirm, if you're okay, that is a $326,334 removal. So that's removing the VP admin time and then adding back 20% of the EAs to 30 hours, which is $273,544. That's based off of Trustee Whitaker's calculations that I'm just taking from her submission here. Is there a seconder for that motion first off before we move forward? Nicole. Okay. Trustee Whitaker, continue if you'd like to.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very, very much. So for me as a board, it's really important that we acknowledge that our greatest operating expense is also our greatest asset. That is the employees of this district. We have heard from our EAs that they're having to leave their positions for different career paths because they cannot afford the cost of living on the hours and income that they receive from School District 61. and that they feel demoralized because there seems to be no hope in the upcoming future for the change in that position. And for any who haven't heard, Victoria is up there. I think we have topped the polls now as being the most expensive place to live in BC. We have also heard that EAs are difficult to recruit, and that at times replacements have been unavailable when regular staff is ill. And we can see this in the $600,000 savings that we have taken in this budget. Of course, the savings to a large degree has also resulted in the suggestion being made to parents that their child does not attend school that day because support is not available. Or other staff have increased their workload to support that student, and very often secretaries and principals step in while alternatives can be found to safely support that student. I'm greatly concerned that this reality is not the discussion that evolved from the discovery of these savings. Competition for skills of these employees, REAs, continues to increase, and recruiters are busy working to lure employees to new positions and careers, offering increased income, paying for upgrades and recertifications, and work from home options. When you're working 25.33 hours per week or 5.06 hours per day, requiring you to work another part-time job to pay your ever-increasing rent, even when you love and you are fantastic working with the kids, at some point you must pay your bills too. Our ability to attract and retain employees must be considerations and reflected in our budget if we are to achieve our strategic goals. It is more efficient and cost-effective to retain quality employees than it is to recruit, train, and orient a replacement employee of the same quality. The bottom line is that by managing for employee retention, School District 61 will retain more talented and motivated employees who truly want to be part of their school communities and who are focused on contributing to the organization's overall success. The lack of these employees as a resource to support our diverse learners affects the entire classroom and the school community. It creates staff burnout and lost learning opportunities, and it is a significant threat to reaching our strategic goals, the success of our learners. With this threat in mind, I am proposing that we just begin to adjust our directions to address this threat and add 20% of the EA ask back into the budget and begin discussions to pilot on how we can better retain our skilled labor force. I also feel very strongly that by adding EA time to our budget, we will have the same effect as adding more hours to our VPs and to our principals as we reduce the demand on their time supervising these students. So I hope that people will consider this very seriously, and then we can move to the next one.
Thanks, Anne. Appreciate that. Any other, well, Nicole, you did second, so you can motivate if you'd like. And then I'm happy to go to other trustees for additional comment, questions, or debate.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Trustee Whitaker. I'm really happy to see this coming before the board for discussion. I know it was certainly a central part of the option that Trustee Whitaker and I proposed to bring forward to the board on Monday. And I think it really goes to the heart of what we've been hearing from our learning community since before this board was elected in 2018. And we've been hearing it louder and louder and louder from not just EAs, but from teaching staff and from principals who've shared their frustration with trying to balance all the needs of the kids in their school while they're trying to really fill gaps created by a lack of EA support in the classroom. And, you know, I very much appreciated our HR manager who spoke to the Budget Advisory Committee and presented an option for, you know, what would be the cost associated with bringing EA hours up to 30 hours a week so that we could more realistically compete with the other districts in our area for those highly skilled EAs. And then when we do recruit them, how we might retain them. And working conditions and the ability to earn a wage that makes it a little easier for you to afford the high cost of living in our city is something that as a board we have to grapple with, and it needs to be in the forefront of our minds. I would much rather see principals and vice principals able to go do their core duties and be able to focus on those rather than filling gaps left in the classroom by a lack of EA support. I would, like to see us as a board get to a point where we're not regularly hearing about kids going out without all the support they need, or without other staff, really feeling the pressure in the classroom to fill gaps left by not enough support. So I think this is really an important legacy piece that this board could leave behind. We're about to enter into an election where a new board will come with a new vision. And for me, right from the very beginning, this has been an issue that really, while our staff has been working diligently behind the scenes to try to recruit more EAs, we really haven't provided a path forward in the way of some kind of focused, targeted funding to support that retention piece. So I really hope that folks will consider supporting this. I think it's not just won't just benefit the EAs; it'll benefit our entire learning community. And I thank you for considering the amendment that Trustee Whitaker's put forward.
Thanks, Nicole. Any other discussion or debate? I'm going to put myself on the list. Okay, seeing none. Jordan, I'll go to you, but I'm just gonna speak first. I really appreciate Trustee Whitaker bringing this forward. I was just refreshing my memory. Back in June of 2019, I brought a motion directing the superintendent to prepare a report around Greater Victoria School District becoming a living wage employer and trying to learn and understand living hours and living wage and that work. And while we certainly heard that when we got the report back, I believe it was in November of that year, that we are largely, except I think for contract workers, a living wage employer. There is certainly a challenge, and I think we all understand, with ensuring that our EAs, it wasn't so much living wage that was necessarily the issue. It was living hours, because the hours for them are an issue, and this is something we've heard consistently from QP 947, have advocated a lot to not just the board, but I'm sure individual trustees around becoming moving more to the 30 hours, as I think we are all aware Souk School District has moved to. The request here, and I have a question before I finish my thoughts, but is to bring in 20%, 273,544. The original request was 1,367,723. So my question to the Secretary Treasurer, so I can understand, what will the impact be of bringing in a 20% of that funding to EAs to support getting up to 30 hours? How practically would that be implemented? Because looking at this, it doesn't necessarily tell me how that would work in practice. So is the Secretary Treasurer able to provide some clarity on that? And Trustee Whitaker, I see your hand up, but I want to go to the Secretary Treasurer first. Kim?
I am not able to say what that would look like. I don't know if we would spread that across all EAs, or if we would post some 30-hour-a-week positions and not others. I'm not sure what that would look like. And then the incoming childcare as well will impact that and where those hours go. I don't know if superintendent or deputy superintendent would like to comment at all.
Deb or Colin?
I think it would take.
Okay. You both want to tackle it. I love it. Colin, go ahead, I guess.
Sorry, if I may, thank you.
if the board were to make that decision, I would see us using our Labour Management Committee meetings to discuss the potential of how best to utilise that by talking to the QP 947 executive. And certainly, as Secretary Schrader said, there would be option to uplift all of the employees by a small amount, or work through the list via seniority, or perhaps target a particular zone or family within the district. So I don't think we're in a position right here and now to determine how that might be allocated, and we would try and arrive at that decision by working alongside the QP 94 executive.
Thanks, Colin. And Trustee Whitaker, go ahead, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Colin, for your thoughts. And I tend to agree. I think that this would be something that would be discussed and worked with QP 947 to implement. I just want to clarify that we do have several EAs in our district that are doing 30 hours a week, but those are generally in our smaller schools, Mackenzie being an example. But what happens when you're in a larger school? And, thank you ever so much to our administrators who are doing everything that they can with the funds that they have to get as many bodies in the building as they can. And in a larger school where you have more EAs, you can slice off a bit of time, and build another body in the school. So it's in those schools, especially where there are more EAs that are working less hours, that I'm hopeful that we'll have those discussions. I'm also very cognizant of the fact that EAs are looking for more opportunities for professional development and for teamwork and collaboration with their peers, that I can see that there are a lot of really fantastic discussions if this funding was available to happen. Maybe there is one EA that is in those schools getting the 30 hours that can be a team lead and can support the other colleagues and have those collaborative meetings. And maybe we will see a large benefit from doing that, where you have a mentor position created in our schools and people can have more opportunities for that collaboration. I don't know. I am not an EA. I'm not working in that field, but I do know that we're not going to see improvement if we don't start funding it and start having the discussions and establish that maybe there is, for every 3 or 4 EAs working, one of them must be 30 hours a week. I don't know, but I do think we need to begin to have these discussions so that we can recruit and retrain these very valuable employees.
Thanks, and so I'm just going to wrap from my portion, which is just to say I think this is something that's very intriguing to me, and I do agree with Nicole around starting to build a bit of a legacy, which I think certainly makes sense. It is very expensive to live in the capital region, and I think if we want to not just retain but attract EAs, we need to be sure that we're doing the work to make the work, the job, the income attractive to bring them here. And I do feel personally that as a relatively new trustee back in 2019, advocating for living wage or living hours, that it would be not just challenging, but even possibly hypocritical for me to not want to support moving in a direction to start aligning reasonable expectations for EAs to be making up to those 30 hours in the district. So I'm not 100% sure where I sit on this, because every position in this district is important. Every position goes to supporting students and supporting the work of public education. So I'm not sure if I feel comfortable removing the VP at mid-time, because I understand what VPs do to support principals as well. So I have to grapple with this a little bit more. Any other discussions from trustees? Jordan, Jordan, I had you next, and then Elaine. Jordan, go ahead.
Thanks, Ryan. You said a lot of what I was thinking in terms of the living wage piece and just how important those extra hours are. Just like how would 20%, how would that be added? So I guess my only real remaining question is, and I know this is sort of a little off topic, but I hope that you'll indulge me, because what I was looking at with that, the 40,000 and then the additional 60 plus, was the ask on our spreadsheet around the Indigenous Nations Education Department teacher and QP staffing. And so I just wondered if we could hear a little bit about, because I recognize that's QP staffing. And so is that EAs that we'd be adding to our system, or what specifically would that? I'd love just to have sort of a refresher around what that line item is, because in terms of looking at, for me, looking at our guiding principles, looking at our strategic plan, and how do we create that legacy where we're reaching some of these goals. I know that Indigenous Nations Education Department allocation could be really impactful, especially around improving outcomes. So I guess through the chair to the superintendent, it's the amount is 136,349, and I don't know if there'd be a way to do less than that amount, or like, is there a clear staffing allocation attached to that? And forgive me if we've been told that I'm just gapping.
Sure, and I think just to clarify, and before I go to Superintendent, Trustee Whitaker may be able to confirm whether or not I'm right. This recommendation from Trustee Whitaker doesn't touch the 40,043 that we have currently in balance. And what it does, what Trustee Whitaker's recommendation here would do is it would remove the VP admin time, put in 20 hours, which actually still brings in a balance of 92,796.
Okay.
So Trustee
So
Waters.
let me withdraw my question. We can talk about that. I'm hoping to put forward a motion around that.
And then we still have the 66 potentially from that HR as well.
Yeah, which to me just seems like it gets us so close to that Indigenous Nations education.
You're actually 4,000 over, so you've got lots of money.
Yeah.
You've got the 40 plus the 69.
Okay, so let me take that out. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought the 40,000 was wrapped up.
No, but thank you. And thanks, Trustee Whitaker and Jordan, for that question, because it helps us all be clear with what we're working with here. Elaine, go ahead. And sorry, before I go to Elaine, Superintendent Whitten, you were referenced. Did you want to make a comment there? Or are you okay with me moving to Elaine?
I'm okay with you moving to Elaine.
Okay, thank you. Elaine, go ahead.
Well, so first of all, in what Anne sent out, the 40,000 was included. Because she said at the end we would have 92,000, and she keeps moving through all of her deliberations in all of her motions. The 40,000 right off the top is included as part of the savings when you do her little spreadsheet there. So because I added it up a couple of times and it's still there. I would like to know two things. So far, I need to know the impact on VPs. I know that they were impacted last year when we cut this from them. And so I would just like maybe somebody from senior admin to talk about what this would mean to VPs to add it back. And then from the secretary treasurer, I would like to know the cuts that we are looking at to this point in time. So I'll give you time to think about this, Kim. The cuts that we're looking at now, how do they play out over the next 2 years, so that 3-year budget planning? Are we in a balanced position over the next 3 years to potentially add some EA 30-hour times in down the road, year 2 or year 3, because we've had enough savings this year in order to accomplish getting ourselves in a deficit-free position that in future years you can add back things. So that's my question to Kim after I get some VP impact updates from staff, please.
Thanks, Elaine. And yes, I appreciate you commenting, because I've done the math now, and you're right. The 92,796 does include the 40,043 residual. So you're absolutely correct. So thank you for that.
Can I just clarify that's in all 5 of the options? In the option that we're discussing now, you will have money left over.
Yep. Okay, so Secretary Treasurer Morris, go ahead.
In terms of VP impact, I might call on the superintendent to comment on that.
Through the chair, thank you. First of all, I would like to say that EA and the conversation here, I appreciate it. They are very important in our supports for students and learning and in schools. As I would say, VPs are, and so I have a concern with taking one out and putting one in. VPs currently in elementary schools, many of them have 100% teaching loads and no administration time. And while they do support principals, they support students in their learning environment. They're often the first form of support and certainly work alongside teachers and alongside EAs. So when we're also looking at reductions in custodial time, we know that principals and vice principals will also be there to support cleaning up and facilitating for conversations. So that is a concern for me, is in reducing VPs and the role that they have within leadership, within leading learning, and also within supporting all students, and also supporting those with diverse needs and disabilities and diverse abilities.
Thank you. And then Kim, I guess on the second follow-up question.
Yeah, I think given option 4 by year 4 or by year 3, we're able to see where we can make reinvestment in the system, and even possibly into year 2, if we're wise with the savings that we can recognize this year. My other comment would be just to be mindful that the Ministry of Education is now called, I think, Ministry of Education and Childcare or something like that, and that childcare hours will probably be coming our way through our CUPE unionized workers, and that probably will come with some funding, and hours will increase that way as well. So if we increase hours now, I'm not sure, would we be in another recruitment or retention situation when childcare comes or not? So I think that's something to be mindful of, is the workload and the scope coming our way in terms of some of our CUPE members.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, go ahead.
Yeah, so yeah, I appreciate the comments of my colleagues and Secretary Treasurer and interim superintendent. For me, you know, I'm looking at our strategic plan. I'm looking at the FESL, the Framework for Enhancing Student Learning, and I'm looking at all the sort of comments and concerns and ideas that we've heard over the last 3.5 years, and we you know, we can't fund everything, and so there are difficult decisions to make. And for me, you know, this issue really comes down to a calculation on my part of impact, and we're talking about 20% of what it would take to have every single EA in our district at 30 hours a week. So we're nowhere near every EA having 30 hours a week. So I think, you know, it leaves 80% of EAs without 30 hours a week. That's quite a significant pool to draw on for childcare. In terms of public education and K to say K to 8 classroom, K to 12 classroom, I would much rather see the impact of having more EAs in the classroom to support teachers in delivering the learning and students who are vulnerable in the classroom and that need that extra lift, that extra one-to-one. And I would much rather see the reality in the classroom be that we have more EAs. It's not something that principals or vice principals can ever make up for. You know, it just, when you look at the numbers, we can have what, and again, I don't want to say exactly, but is it a 2 to 1? I mean, we essentially, it is a matter of dollars and cents. And, you know, I'd rather see EAs, have enough EAs in the classroom to provide those supports that we've heard are missing. We're only, you know, suggesting a 20% increase. So in essence, this would have to be something that was invested in this year. We see how it goes to see if we see some of those improvements that people are calling for. And then in year 2 and 3, there's an opportunity to invest more, or there's an opportunity to maybe invest more in VP time. But given the stress and the clear call from staff, from parents and students for more supports in the classroom, I think that, you know, we would be better off investing in more EA time at this point. And it's not to take away from the amazing work that principals and vice principals do. We know they do amazing work, and we know that they're filling gaps for custodial staff and for EAs. I don't think that we should continue to have them doing that. I don't think that's fair to have them doing that. I would rather see them focused on their core work and allow EAs to do what EAs do and custodial staff to do what custodial staff does. So I really hope that people see this 20% as an opportunity rather than taking it away from VPs. I really do think there's actually a benefit to VPs in having enough EAs during the day to do that job and not have our principals and vice principals doing that job. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole. Jordan?
I just want to clarify, this isn't about adding more EAs. This is about expanding hours outside of the bells.
Mm-hmm.
So this isn't about adding more EAs into the classroom. It's about providing additional hours after and before the bell, correct?
Kim?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just clarifying. I'm not arguing anything, Nicole. I just wanted to clarify. Just your comment sounded a lot like we were adding EA time, and unfortunately, we're not with this motion.
Thank you, Jordan. Nicole?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that. So I wanted to clarify my comments, if I may. So regardless of whether it's adding the 15 minutes before or after the bell, the reality is that EAs we're talking about retention of staff, right? And so by providing that, hopefully we're retaining those EAs that we are currently losing, and B, you know, I hope that what we see is that there's some opportunity for some collaboration time that we've also heard very clearly from EAs they don't get. So that's sort of my perspective on where I'm coming from. So hopefully that clarifies the point.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it's good for folks to understand the on the ground impacts of what this could mean. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
I'm hoping there's no.
We lost you.
Whoops. I'm hoping that there's no further comments and I can close. Are we at that point yet?
Let me just check. Any other comments or discussion so we can let Trustee Whitaker close and go to a vote. Seeing and hearing none. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead. You may close.
Thank you. So lots of really, really good discussion here. I do want to, I guess, agree with Trustee Duncan. This is about retention. This is about job satisfaction. And most importantly, this is about when our students show up at school that they are not sent home. If we have good job satisfaction and we have that retention, then those learning opportunities will be there for our students. When there is not an EA available, it creates commotion, is probably a good word, throughout the school for that time period. If a child is dropped off and there isn't an EA available, our principals are not doing their administrative jobs that they would otherwise be doing at that time. They are looking after these students. It is also about, as I said, I would like to see these students in our class and participating. I don't want them to be, because we have low job satisfaction with our EAs, that we aren't finding enough of them to stay with us, that we're losing them to SUC or to SANAGE or to a new career in insurance. It is about putting our students in the seat and included in included in their learning. 20% is really, it's just an olive branch. It is not, it's not a lot of money. It's the opportunity to have discussions as to how we can do this. The Secretary Treasurer made the comment that, well, we should wait because, you know, there's this childcare hours that might be coming. Well, we're going to pass a budget next year too. And if that is the case, then we can change this when we can see our employees doing that. But as I said, I am very, very fearful that we are going to be in a position by next year that this time next year, if we don't do something now, that we will be desperately looking for EAs. We see our HR people leaving, retiring when a year earlier than we had expected. Why do you think that is? Because the job is feeling very challenging to fill those roles, that it's like a nonstop door. The fact that we've had to create an EA training program so we can quickly drop them in, even when they haven't had the full education, speaks volumes to our lack of ability to attract these employees. And if we don't do something soon, we are going to have a very bigger problem next year to deal with. So I really hope that you will support this. It's an olive branch. Anyway, thank you.
All right, thank you, Trustee Whitaker. That is all the debate for this. So I'm going to call the question. Again, the motion is to remove the item VP spending time 326,340 from the ad and putting in 273,544 to add 20% EAs to 30 hours. All those in favor?
Chair.
Oh, sorry.
Chair, I'm in conflict here, so I'll recuse myself from the vote.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate you letting me know that. Okay, so Tom is recused. We'll just make sure to note that. All those in favor? Those opposed? And the motion carries with Elaine opposed and Tom recused. So let's just give staff a moment to update our spreadsheet.
I wonder if we could do like a 3 or 4 minute break.
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Can
you.
can I get a motion for a
How
5 minute
about
break?
a
Let's do
5-minute break?
Yeah,
So
okay.
please.
Moved by Jordan, seconded by Ann. All those in favor, not opposed, I imagine. Okay, 5 minute break. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay, everybody, I think that's 5 minutes. I'm not really sure what time means anymore these days. Anne, I know we have a few pieces here for you. Are you okay if we see if someone else has some pieces we want to move, or do you want to go through your
Well, let's just
2,
continue
3,
on. I'm
4,
sure the
5,
rest will.
6 as well?
Yeah, I would like to continue through. I don't think the next ones are going to take as long. I sure hope not, but.
All right, let me just check with trustees. Because I want to make sure everyone's getting a fair shot, because you do have 1, 2, 3, 4, you have 5 other pieces left, although one of them's not really a piece. Jordan?
I'm just hoping for an opportunity to move a budget-related motion whenever you put me on the list, Chair.
I'm feeling like I want to put Jordan on the list next. We've gone through
Just have the one.
Yeah, we've got a big piece that Trustee Whitaker just moved. We had a long discussion. I'd like to try to be equitable with trustees here. Board, are we okay if I just maybe go to Jordan first and then we can go back to some other people? Is that okay, Elaine?
I'm okay with that. And Jordan did bring up hers at the end of the Monday meeting, and we
That's
told
true.
her that we would talk about it today.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks, Elaine. Okay, I'm going to go to Jordan and then we can go back and do some other stuff, but let's go to Jordan first.
Thank you. So in terms of the asks, we have on our list $136,349 being requested from the Indigenous Nations Education Department for teacher and QP staffing. And I would like to add that to our budget using that 40,000 we had plus the HR money and whatever the balance is there.
So I think our balance, I'm just seeing what Kim has here, is 92,838. Oh, and okay, wait a minute. Kim's doing some stuff.
And I'd be happy to motivate or to allow the superintendent to speak to, or if Dr. Nimi's in the call, just what this ask specifically is, because
Sure. So
I'm really hopeful that the board can support it. I think it's really important for us as we move towards our strategic plan goals.
Sure.
So
Thanks, Jordan.
Chair,
So
can I-
Sorry. Yeah. Hold on. Sorry. Just pause. So Jordan has moved. Do I have a seconder just before we? Okay. Trustee Whitaker. Elaine, go ahead.
Just for clarification,
Yeah.
from my understanding, the 40,000 is gone because it was part of Trustee Whitaker's motion, and the 66 we didn't do anything official about that. So I'd just like to know where we stand. Do we have to do something official to put the 66 on the table, and is the 40,000 available based on the previous motion?
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. So I see what Kim has just done here. So my understanding what's just happened is we've had the VPs moved off of the asks. We've put in the 20% for EA time. That combined with the 40,000 left a balance of 93,838, I believe, somewhere around there. And then Jordan moved in the HR reduction of 66,945 in her motion that she just moved, which gave us 153,000 or 154,000, I think. And then the INED teacher and QP staffing was added to the asks, which I see Kim has updated our remaining balance here, which is now 23,430 or 343 or something. I've lost it because the screen has moved. 23,434 is our remaining. Does that answer your question, Elaine, or did you want Kim to elucidate a bit more? Yeah, okay. Awesome. So Jordan, as the mover, I'll let you continue if you'd like, and then Trustee Whitaker as well as the seconder.
Thanks, Trustee Painter. I don't know if we want to have the superintendent speak to this motion, just in terms of like what it actually means in terms of the teacher and EA or QP allocation, if that'd be helpful to trustees. But certainly for me, as I look through our guiding principles, as well as the gaps in achievement that we see across the district, I think the more that we can, put our money where our mouth is in terms of decolonizing and supporting Indigenous success in our system, that the teacher and QP complement to the Indigenous Nations Education Department is badly needed and will be very welcome, I think, across our schools. So I'm hoping the board will support this. When I went home, I guess I was already here. When I reflected on the budget where we got to, this is what stood out for me as like something that we had really missed in our first 2 readings in the bylaw. And something I would really like to see us make an investment in if we really want to turn, move the dial on these issues.
Sure. Thanks, Jordan. Before I go to Trustee Whitaker, Superintendent Whitten, any information you'd like us to know about what the implications of this would be? Over to you.
Sure, thank you. And thank you, Trustee Waters. I will start and then I'll pass it over to Deputy Superintendent Colin Roberts as he may have additional information. Yes, this is adding to the Indigenous Education Department staffing, both through teacher staffing as well as QP, and working in schools alongside teachers as well as district team members to continue the work and build on the work, certainly looking at closing the achievement gaps for Indigenous students, but also looking at indigenizing curriculum and looking at systemic racism and colonialism within our system. But I will ask Colin if he has more information.
Deputy Superintendent Roberts, over to you if you have some further information to add.
Thank you. So I believe that the teaching positions would be based at in schools, but supported at the district level, with the idea of creating an infrastructure where there would be a teacher available at both the elementary, the middle, and the secondary levels, able to provide expertise to schools at each of those levels. And then for the QP 947 positions, they would not be EA type positions, but more would act in a outreach role to create connection and relationship with families and to help with connecting students back to school if they were having struggles with their academic or social interactions at the school. So more of an outreach type position than a traditional educational assistant.
Okay, thank you both. Jordan, does that satisfy your curiosity there? Yeah, okay, very good.
Yes,
Trustee
I appreciate the clarification.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
Yeah, I completely support this. This was in option 6 as well that we presented to the board or tried to present to the board on Monday. So I'm all there. It's from day one. This is what we need to be doing. I support this 100%, and I certainly hope that the rest of the board does as well.
Very good. Any further discussion or debate? Oh, Nicole, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the Trustee Whitaker's comments. It was in the option that we wanted to present to the board on Monday, and so I'm so glad that it's come back to the table, and that hopefully the board will support it.
Thank you. I'll toss myself on the list really quick. I don't have a lot more to add beyond what my colleagues have said. Thank you, Jordan, for bringing this forward. I know you wanted to discuss this and bring it last night, but I think tonight, especially with the HR reduction, has helped clarify our capacity to do this with some remainder. And I think this is really important given our strategic plan, given the work that I know Dr. Schilling-Niemi and our Indigenous Education Department has been so focused on. And we definitely have a gap that we need to fill, and this work is going to help us get there. So I really appreciate you championing this and bringing it forward here today. And I appreciate the Indigenous Education Departments coming forward and letting us know what they need so that we can give them the tools to do their work. Jordan, did you want to close? Unless anyone else wants to comment?
No, I'm just really grateful to hear trustees supporting this motion.
All right, hearing nothing further, I'll call the question on this motion. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Trustee Whitaker, back to you and your motion number 2.
Okay, so in this, I'm looking at the custodians, and what I would like to do is reduce the cuts to elementary middle school by half of what's there. So essentially it's a 25% reduction. So that's a reduction in the cut, which sounds funny. So it's an add to spending of 327,451. But I would like to add the cut to high school custodians at 50% of 105,441. And I would speak to that. If I had
Sure,
a
let's
second.
just see if we have a seconder first. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker. Nicole, okay, Trustee Whitaker, back to you.
Okay, so while I would echo very similar concerns about retention as I would with the EA positions, I would like to raise and add a few other comments and concerns about custodial cuts. One, where I'm looking at cutting high school over elementary and middle school. I think that our high school students can do a far better job of keeping things neat and tidy. And if they cannot, then we need to be having a very different conversation about that. I'm expecting that we're raising adults that are going to be neat and clean in their work environment. And in school, this is where we should be training them. So thus, I would like to shift it away from the elementary and middle schools. Firstly, though, I would really like to thank Mr. Doug from my children's time at Sir James Douglas Elementary School to where to this day, when you ask my kids about what they remember about elementary school, they will mention Doug every single time. They will talk about how stories about how Doug made their day with a really kind word. Thank you for opening the door, knowing their name, that he always made them feel safe in the hallways, especially when they were so small, and the grade 7s for my oldest and my grade 5s for my younger 2 were so big. Going to the bathroom felt much safer knowing that Doug was in the hallways for them. My kids always knew Doug was there for them, and it speaks volumes to the impact that our daytime custodians have on our students when 18 years later, this is still the stories that we hear. Secondly, I would like to reflect on the work of daytime custodians. Daytime custodians open our schools before staff arrive, ensuring everything is ready and safe for our students. They inspect the grounds, ensuring there are no rig kits, no needles, or other undesirable items that students could encounter. They move along any undesirable people on the property and they make sure that the heat is on. During the day, they clean high-touch surface areas, tidy and clean the bathrooms, picking up the napkins and whatever off of the floor, flushing those surprises that students are still learning to deal with, and they're removing compost and waste from our schools, which would otherwise cause fruit flies and other concerns associated with overflowing bins. We must also acknowledge that the health and safety of our students with allergies, which our daytime custodians keep safe, wiping down eating areas so that there are no nut traces behind and those students can enjoy all that our schools have to offer. Perhaps it's when the unexpected issues happen that we appreciate our daytime custodians the most, especially in elementary school. When children are sick or there are accidents in our school, custodians save the day. While as adults, we may not see heroism in the work that they do, I assure you that our students and staff do. It can be a traumatic experience for a child to vomit in school, and it can be equally traumatic for those around them. One ill child will quickly turns into 2 or 3 as gag reflexes take over. For some, the presence of the mess and it not being cleaned up until the mobile patrol shows up is beyond distracting, and no learning can occur, often causing the entire class to move to a new location. The embarrassment of the mess sitting on the floor for hours can haunt a young, sensitive child for years, especially when other students recall the story later on from their point of view, making jokes and laughing about the experience. Thankfully, our school administrators know this, and we do not know this. And if we do cut daytime custodians, I know it will be our principals who will be forced to attend to these messes, covering them up, finding new teaching spaces until they can call and get a mobile cleaning crew to attend. I struggle to believe that this is the best use of their time, but I thank them for doing it the best that they can. I must also speak to the endemic and the sixth wave of COVID we are entering. COVID's not finished with us yet, and high-touch zones continue to need extra cleaning to ensure that staff and students and parents feel as safe as possible from this virus. That is about feeling safe in your classroom and having a good learning environment. So in closing, I cannot ignore the increase in management positions and facilities over the last few years. In 2015, the district had 5 senior management positions. Now in 2022, each of these positions has an assistant manager, and we have also added a fleet manager, a climate manager, and a health and safety manager. And I am most disappointed to learn that earlier this year, one of these positions was vacated and filled, knowing we were facing a $7 million deficit, which has denied the board the ability to cut the position without incurring severance costs. This is not teamwork and does not demonstrate servant master leadership traits most required in the education system. So for these reasons, I think it is vitally important that we continue to have daytime custodians in our schools, and we do what we can to see those in our elementary and our middle schools. And I also believe that what we should be doing is looking at reducing the number of assistant managers that we have in our facilities as we can, and put those into actual boots on the ground workers. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Nicole, as the seconder, you can motivate as well on this. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I think Trustee Whitaker has just covered the subject very well. But what I would say is that in my view, this achieves a better balance in terms of my own assessment of the risks moving forward, you know, especially around the health and safety piece. Unfortunately, I don't think that we're clear of the pandemic, and I think retaining some further support at the elementary and middle level would be prudent on our part. And I would hope that at the high school level, we can count on our older, mature students to do their utmost to keep their learning environment as clean as possible during the day. And so, yeah, I do support, of course, having seconded it, the proposal. And I hope my colleagues will as well.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion from trustees on this motion to reduce cuts to custodians at elementary and middle by 25% and cut high school custodians at 50%? Elaine.
Thank you. It's always really, really difficult to cut staffing of any type. It's over the years that I've been on the board, custodians and particularly daytime custodians have come up many times, and I've never voted to cut them. So it's really difficult to support the cut that's already in the document that we approved on Monday night. But I am just going to stay with the cut that was approved on Monday night. And what Trustee Whitaker is doing here in front of me is something that I also never do, is micromanage within a department. So the trustees are now trying to tell staff that they know better which schools should have custodians and which schools have the need more than others. And I believe that we heard from our facilities staff that high schools have more graffiti, more vandalism, because the students are older, bigger, and do more damage than the younger ones. So I'm not going to presume that I know more than the staff that are in the schools and manage the custodians all day, every day. Again, no cut is ever a good cut, and my heart goes out to all the people who may lose their jobs through this budget deliberation. But I'm not going to micromanage the cut that's already on the table and the staffing that was put forward by the facilities people, and particularly Mr. Morris and his staff, to come up with the recommendations, because I know it was difficult for them to come up with the recommendations and the balance that they presented to us. So I can't support the motion on the table.
Thanks, Elaine. Any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Trustee Whitaker, did you want to close?
Yeah, I would. I just would respond to Trustee Leonard's comment about vandalism, because that's not actually dealt with by our custodial staff. So I'm not really sure what it is that our high school students are doing that requires more custodial staff. I really, if my daughter or her friends in high school are doing messes and damage in the school and we are not adjusting that behavior, I'm very concerned as a parent. As I said, I think this is about, we are training adults who are going to go in a workforce. If they are doing graffiti and wrecking walls, my goodness, we have got a whole different social and emotional learning piece that we need to deal with in our high schools. But further to that, I would actually ask a question of our facility staff. If we do lose our daytime custodians, what will happen to the supervisor of the daytime custodians? Will that be a savings that we'll be able to capture?
I will put that back over to Kim. I don't know if I see Chuck on the call. So.
Sorry, through the chair. The different staffing levels for each scenario were incorporated into the scenarios, and so the increase or decrease of a foreman or a foreperson is already in the scenario.
Trustee Whitaker, does that help?
So you're saying within that there is the loss of the daytime supervisor as well?
I'm saying if there was a loss of the daytime supervisor, it would already be incorporated into the scenario, because it had each scenario had several moving parts, including evening positions, 4 persons in the daytime, and fly crew if necessary.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I don't know if people would consider an amendment to cut 100% of the high school custodians and put that savings back to the elementary and middle school. But otherwise, I don't have more to add. I'm really disappointed if we are cutting from especially our elementary schools and keeping custodians in our high schools. I just not seeing the benefit there. And I apologize if I am micromanaging staff. That's not my intent. That comes from my experience as a schoolyard supervisor and working in the schools, that I really, in all levels of our schools that I've worked, that I really believe elementary schools are where we need custodians. It's not in high school.
Okay, so sorry, were you moving an amendment there to remove the 100% of high school? I just want to make sure if that was your intent, that it's moved and seconded and we can debate. Can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry, I think that because that's a different calculation, and I think that would be really difficult for the secretary or beach out. It's not easy for the secretary treasurer. I think if you're going to defeat this one, do that. And then I would just put that amendment, make that another motion to.
Okay. So maybe you
does that make more sense?
Deal with this one first, and then maybe you'll deal with the high school after we deal with this. Is that where you'd like to go?
Yeah.
Okay. So trustees, that closes the debate. I'm going to call the question again. The motion on the floor is to reduce cuts to custodians in elementary and middle by 25%, and then to cut high school custodians at 50%. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? And the motion's defeated with Trustee Whitaker and Nicole in favor and the balance opposed. Okay, so Trustee Whitaker, you want to go with
so it'll be easy. Yeah, I just think it's easier to do it this way than be amending in the middle of a motion. So what I would like to see is the 210,882,000 from high school custodial daytime as a savings, and that much reduced from the middle and high school. So it is really a net zero result, but I am micromanaging staff and deploying people to our elementary schools.
Okay, sorry. So I'm just trying to see where we're at here. So 100% of the high school custodians, there we go. Thank you very much, Kim. So 210,883 is the proposed reduction. Is there a seconder?
And so to clarify, you're going to take that. So this is a net zero. This is a shift. So from your reduction. That's right. Thank
Got
you.
it. Okay, got it. So taking the reduction from there and adding it to the one above. Okay. All right, or taking it from, sorry, I'm tired. I think I'm understanding it though. Trustees, do you understand? Because I'm not doing a good job tonight. I'm sorry. Is everyone clear? Is there a seconder for that, please? Seconded by Nicole. Okay. And did you want to motivate a bit more? I think everyone else gets it. Maybe just not me, but
Whoops. I would like to hear what the Secretary Treasurer has to say before.
sure. Kim?
So I'm just concerned about, no, I have nothing to add. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
That's okay. Nothing from Kim. Any discussion on this motion? Sorry, Trustee Whitaker, you can motivate. I know you said a bit previously, but you feel free to continue if you'd like.
Well, as much as I would really like to see more money going back to our custodians, I don't feel that in the room, but I do think it is very, very important to not only myself, but to our staff and to our parents that we do what we can to get more daytime custodians into our elementary schools, especially, and definitely middle school for sure. So this is my effort to try and shift this support to our younger students.
All right, thank you. Nicole, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you to the chair. I just want to say that, you know, I don't, I don't think it's helpful to, turn the dialogue towards, assertions that colleagues are trying to, micromanage staff. I mean, I feel like this is a budget process where we do have to make hard decisions about impacts. And as a board, we're responsible for the budget. And so if we have a perspective that we think is important to share, even if it differs from what was recommended, then I think it's incumbent upon us to bring that forward in good faith. And at the end of the day, the board will decide. But I know that the intention here is to try to move some of the cuts away from the schools and the kids, the younger kids, where the view is that they need that support of that daytime custodial staff more than the older children. How that's implemented or whether it gets implemented is an operational matter. But this board is in charge of the budget. And so, I just really wanted to say that because I think we need to work hard to move away from that kind of dialogue with one another. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole. Jordan?
Thanks, Ryan. And sorry if I'm a broken record, but wanting to bring us back to the guiding principles and, that we spend all that time on, and I think are so valuable for helping direct us in our decision making and our process here. And there is under relationships recognition of expertise. And so I did ask the question around this in our last meeting, because to me, I was wondering why the recommendation was shifting maintaining those custodians at the senior levels rather than elementary. I have to trust the expertise of the people who are actually doing the job and directing that. And the recommendation is around maintaining it at the secondary level. Obviously, the recommendation would be to maintain all daytime custodians, and I really wish we could do that. But given the hard choices that we're having to make and the decision making, I feel like I have to trust the expertise of the people who are doing the work and the folks in facilities. So I'm not going to support this, although I recognize, how our lay experience, might tell us otherwise. If there's a greater need in high school, then that's where I want to put that. And I trust the expertise coming forward around that recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Any other comments? Seeing and hearing none, I'm happy to go back to Trustee Whitaker to close.
Yeah, thank you. And I do appreciate Trustee Waters bringing us back to the understanding the experts and listening to the experts. And I've done my homework. I have gone and I have talked to custodians in our elementary schools and our middle schools and our high schools, and boots on the ground agree with me that it is important that these positions are in our elementary and our middle schools and not so much in our high schools, that our high schools are far better served later in the evening when there are less students and bigger bodies that are moving around. There's no sweeping the floors during the day when there's that many big adults. They are adults at this point in high school. So while I appreciate there is a much larger cost savings to cutting elementary and middle school daytime custodians than our high school custodians, a much larger savings, I am far happier to forego those additional savings. Well, in this case, we're still getting them with this particular calculation, and see those custodians with those younger students where they have that impact, where 18 years later, those kids are still talking about that adult in that school. So I hope that we'll support this.
Thanks, Trustee Whitaker. Appreciate the conversation on this. With that, I will call the question. And again, I think trustees understand what we're doing here with the bringing in and shifting. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by raising your hands. All those in favor, and those opposed, please raise your hands. And that is defeated. So Trustee Whitaker, back over to you. I believe you have additional 3 or 4, well, 3 more for this budget and then 1 more for the next, I think.
Oops. I've only got 1 more left, really.
Oh, okay.
So I would add back in the parent education fund at $11,000. And if I'm not mistaken, we actually have 23,000 to work with. So I don't need to find the money anywhere. Is that correct?
We have 23,434 currently left.
Yeah, so we got lots of money there. So for me, I mean, I guess I have a question.
Sorry, Trustee Whitaker, I'm dropping the ball here. So you want to add that back just before we motivate? Is there a seconder? Trustee Whitaker, or sorry, Nicole seconded. Trustee Whitaker, over to you. My apologies.
Okay, I do, and I'll just mention it now so that Secretary Treasurer can find it. I would like to know how much the line item is for our DPAC funding that we provide to the DPAC. It's just a question for what was last year's funding and what is that formula. And then I'll speak to the Parent Education Fund. For me, to cut this Parent Education Fund would be loudly demonstrating that we do not believe that parents are partners in our learning community. These funds are accessed and used annually by PAC's parents to support learning opportunities which support their students' learning experience. These funds allow parents and principals to tailor learning to topics that their communities have determined there is a need for. And it allows for parents and administrators to work together in partnership. Topics that may be discussed are topics about drugs, how to talk to your kids about drugs, how to help your child with the new math, because that's a thing, right? For some of us parents that didn't do that new math, that's very confusing. And I know many schools have used that. It's about internet safety. It's about anything that might happen in the community that parents feel is something that they want to talk about more. They want to educate more. Anyway, and so that for me, this money came from the DPAC funding to start with, and it has had a good take up. To cut this funding would be a slap in the face to our partners. This is pittance. If we do have to cut it, which I don't think we do, I think we need to do a full review of the DPAC funding formula then. So I wonder if Kim has the.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Kim next. Thanks, Trustee Whitaker. Kim, over to you.
Yes, the calculation is 24 cents per student plus the $165 per school, gives you a total less $3,000 to the Parent Education Fund, is then the VC-PAC funding for the Student Learning Fund.
Is there a dollar? That's a great count. What was last year? Because I know you can't do next year.
What was last year's what?
How much did we give them last year? Like, what is 24 cents per student?
Well, you have to take off the 3,000. So the net is 9,500.
Thank you.
Thank you. I saw Elaine raise her hand, so I'm going to go to Elaine next.
Yeah, I'm going to bring forward a motion how I want to spend the 23,000. So I can't support this motion on the table right now because I have another space I would like to place for that motion, for that money. So sorry, Anne, but I think then the discussions of where what staff had said earlier was that this could be found in another line item someplace within the budget. And I'm not quite sure what line item that was, but it doesn't sound like the parents will lose their funding, even if this line item comes out of here. So I was happy with that explanation. And so I'll be bringing forward a motion after this.
Thanks. And just for clarification through either the secretary treasurer or to the superintendent, I believe on Monday when we discussed this, my understanding was that we were able to remove this out of the line item from the budget because it was going to come from discretionary. Can I just get clarification on that, either from Kim or from Deb?
That's true.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Whitaker, I see your hand. Go
Well,
ahead.
so I would ask a point of clarification. Why is it on here as a savings or as a cut if we're not cutting it? We're finding the money somewhere else.
Kim, over to you.
We are removing the line item because it's partially spent each year. And we were able to find it from other line items.
Okay, thank you.
So
Oh,
How will
sorry.
I know? So how will I know that this money is there for parents for learning later if it's not on a line item? How would parents still be able to access that? Are we still in September going to send out a letter to PAC saying that they have got the opportunity for these learning funds?
Yes, as far as I am aware, that was the intent, but perhaps the deputy or the interim superintendent would like to speak to that.
Yep.
I think we would-
Sorry, not Deb. Superintendent Deb Whitten. Too many D's. Go ahead, Deb.
Thank you. Yes, we would follow the same process as we have had in the past, where we put out that information and receive, as we have all year, requests. So that would not change. And I believe also we would report back to the board so that you would know how it was being spent and where it was being spent. So I think the process would remain the same.
Okay, thank you. Nicole, sorry, Trustee Whitaker, are you okay? Nicole?
No, well, no, I'm not actually. I don't understand this. This doesn't really make sense to me. Why this is written on here as a cut. If the money is still coming out of the budget from somewhere else, it's still happening. It's not like this is a reduction to the budget in any way. If you want to remove a line item, you just remove the line item. It's not part of a budget discussion. The money is still being spent. So I guess I'm just feeling challenged because I know how hard it is for parents to fight for funding and to get that, and to remove funding, it never comes back. I mean, this funding that we are giving at 24 cents per student and the 165 comes from the original way back when we actually funded parents, and it was line 141 on that budget from the ministry. It was a line item then, and we've rolled it into this. And I know from that, once you remove line 141 from the ministry's budget, it disappears. PACs all across this province, DPACs across this province, suddenly had zero funding because that money was removed. And because of the efforts of John Bird, this district has maintained DPAC funding and PAC funding from that 141 that originally existed. So I'm just concerned and want to know that this is going to continue. And I don't even want to see it as a cut on there, because this should have been a subline of the DPAC funding line. It has always been part of the DPAC funding. And what we did is we took away the administration of this fund from the DPAC and brought it to the district so that principals and PACs worked together rather than a PAC having to go through the DPAC. So I'm just concerned about that, and I'm really looking for, can the superintendent or somebody say it on the record that this money is going to exist in September?
Okay, any comment from Deb or Kim? Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, so just to be clear, also help me understand, a portion of this is the student education fund and a portion of this is the parent education fund. So the 11,000 wasn't, through my time anyways, of my understanding, wasn't for all parent education regardless. We've had money that has carried forward, and I think it's been about 7,500 per year that we've been able to allocate to varying degrees. And I would say that we would continue that work with PAC. So I don't see this going anywhere.
Okay, thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the challenge here is why not report it in the budget against what has actually been spent to do. So, you know, if it's to fund parent education and a portion of it is to fund student education, or why would we not report it in the budget that way? You know, it's not just a commitment. It's not just about reporting correctly in the budget, but it's also about just the commitment being there. Being present in the budget, rather than being something that behind the scenes, you know, we commit to. So I think as I'm listening to the conversation, this really is about the clarification that's needed is really about why you wouldn't report it in the budget and in the way that you're spending it, or for what you're spending it on.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's a question for the Secretary Treasurer there or not. Kim, did you? I mean, I expect that what is on here is all correct because our staff worked really hard to pull this information together. So I'm certain that the numbers that we're seeing here are in fact correct numbers. Kim, did you want to respond?
The numbers are correct. We wouldn't put incorrect numbers on the list, and it's at the board's will whether it keeps this line item or accepts the commitment from staff that the same funding will be available to schools when they ask the superintendent in the fall, or when the letter goes out in the fall.
Thanks, Kim. Appreciate the confirmation that the numbers that we have here are correct numbers, that we are reporting correct numbers from district staff. Nicole, follow up?
Yeah. So my question, or I was asking a question about reporting. So I wasn't suggesting that the numbers in the budget are incorrect. I was asking why the line item would not be reported in the same way that it has been before. So it's not about there being an incorrect number or me suggesting in any way that staff have got it wrong. I'm asking for clarification about why it wouldn't be reported in the same way it has been in the past.
Okay, Kim, comment or follow up?
I would say that the budget line item is underspent annually, and we know we have other funds to attend to it, and we know we're making the same commitment to it. And so always looking at the line items that are underspent and trying to find other ways to fund them where necessary. And so it's really at the will of the board whether they want to include this or not. The commitment is there to provide the service, and whether the line item is there or not, the system will be served.
Thanks, Kim. So we're going to move on. I think we've covered this, in my opinion, sufficiently. Is there any further conversation on this motion to add back the parent education fund total amount? Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to let Trustee Whitaker
I'm sorry.
close.
I'm sorry, Chair. I just need to get, I'm sorry. I am struggling with how in a budget, when what I'm hearing from staff is that we're going to still spend this money. It's all good. We're still going to spend this money. We're not going to lose it. But yet we take those dollars off of the budget that we're spending. And I realize that it's not a lot of money, but I'm just trying to get my head around how that works, because we're still going to spend the money. So where is this a savings? Right? Like, I just don't get, like, why don't we just remove it and everything's equal? Because it sounds like that's what you're saying. How is it that we have an $11,000 budget savings because we want to erase that this is a line item on the budget, but yet we're still going to spend the money? I'm just struggling to understand that piece. And I'm sorry if I just need to visualize that and understand it for myself. I just don't understand how this is flowing.
Sure. Kim, can you help clarify
There
at
are
all?
department budgets in each department. The superintendent has a budget, the associate superintendents have a budget. We know that this small amount of funding can come from the superintendent's department budget. And so there's a commitment to do that. And if the board wants the line item, they can go ahead and keep the line item.
But does it have an effect on the overall budget is I guess what my question becomes.
Well, we're
I-
budgeting in the superintendent's department, which has funding in order to cover it, and we're budgeting for it in this line item. So we're budgeting for it twice because the superintendent's discretionary budget has room for this initiative.
And so how is the superintendent's discretionary budget determined? Should we reduce the superintendent's discretionary budget by this amount so that we keep the line item? That's a net zero change?
Well, you're reducing the superintendent's budget by the amount of this line item that is traditionally underspent. So you'll be carrying forward in this line item.
And I'm okay with that coming out of COVID. I think it's been underspent. I mean, I get the student piece. I would leave the student piece with under the superintendent, but the parent piece generally is spent. So I guess that's my concern. I'm very concerned when line items for parents disappear.
Okay. Jordan, point of clarification or question or comment?
Yeah, I really regret that we don't have VCPAC at the table to be able to speak to some of this. I've been looking on their website, and the last budget that I can see approved is from October 26, and they note that the district gives them $9,200. So I think that's in addition to this. On top of their existing balance. So just adding that to the conversation. I mean, I feel confident that if we can pay for this out of other funds, that we're going to do that. And yeah, I recognize the concern, but I don't think there's a bait and switch here. This is just about how we structure the budget. And I appreciate staff's patience with, the clarification, and I hope we can move forward with a vote here.
Okay. I think we've closed on this, but Trustee Whitaker, we've gone back and forth. I just want to make sure you have an opportunity to close in terms of the debate on this piece. I don't want to lose that thread. So.
Yeah, obviously this is important to me. My history has been supporting parents in PACs and DPACs for years, and this one is important to me that we continue to report this out. I think as DPAC presidents change, and that's why this came forward in the first place, is as DPACs presidents and representatives from schools change, often it's nice to be able to come to the district instead of always the DPAC if you are looking for some sort of initiative and really want to support your parents. And it also, I think it's really important for principals to know that when parents come forward, their PAC comes forward and says, hey, we've got this problem in our school. We're noting a great deal of anxiety and parents are upset about whatever, that we could go, hey, let's do a learning workshop on this topic, and I can talk to the superintendent and I can get us some money and we'll work together. We'll take some of your gaming funds and some of these funds and we'll make something, and it brings community together. Again, I'm going to just say it's so important for school connectedness that we provide opportunities for parents to learn within our schools along with our students.
Okay, thank you very much. So debate is closed. I'll call the question on the add back of the parent education fund at $11,000. All those in favor? Those opposed? And it is defeated with Trustee Whitaker and Nicole in favor and the balance opposed. Trustee Whitaker, did you have anything further for motion on the budget? If not, I think Elaine has something. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I get that. No, the only things that were on my note is that was the reduction. If I had needed the money, I would have been looking to use our current reserves and then taking the money in the following year from a reduction from our facilities assistant managers. So that's just, heads up for next year. But no, I don't have anything more.
Okay, Thanks, Trustee Whitaker. Elaine, over to you. I know you have a motion for our consideration, I believe.
Yeah, if I could see the bottom line, I think we have $23,434 left to spend.
I believe that
Well,
is
it's
correct.
it's a terrible way to put it, but I think that's what our balance sheet has as in the positive right now. And I know that the removal of the VP admin time, and we've also cut school admin for small schools and low enrollment, and now we have custodial cuts. So I would like to see that 23,434 go back to VP time in whatever schools would need it to cover some of the other cuts that we've made. And that would be left up to staff to figure out how to parcel that out. It's a really small amount compared to what we just took out of their line item at 326,000. And so it's not very much, but it might help somewhat. And so I'm moving that.
Okay, that's moved. Do I have a seconder for that? Seconded by Jordan. Thank you. Elaine has motivated on that. Elaine, did you want to say anything further?
Nope, I think that's good. I'll listen to other folks.
Okay, Jordan, over to you.
Don't just thanks Elaine for bringing this forward. I think this is really going to continue to be felt in our schools. So any little bit that we can use to support that our VPs would be well felt in our schools.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion, Trustee Whitaker?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I am going to disagree with it. $23,000 across 48 schools, or in however many, even if it was 25 schools with the VP, we're looking at like $1,000 over a year. So what's that, like 2 minutes a week? I just don't think that the bang for the buck is there. If you really want to get bang for that buck, there's just so many other things that I would do. I would put that money to custodians. I would put that money to EAs. $23,000 based on a 6-figure salary and $23,000 based on a 2-figure salary. You just get more bodies in the schools. And I'm struggling that we don't understand or don't seem to be acknowledging that the more adults in our school, especially with our elementary school kids, that's where the value is. That's the value. It's the bodies in the school. It's not, it's not admin time. You know, I'm happy as a trustee to stop sending so many surveys to our principals and to cut that part of the work. I want to see principals and people that are working directly with the students. No, you know, let's minimize the paperwork. Let's find a better way to do this.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Jordan?
Just want to clarify that our VPs work with our kids in the schools. Just to be clear that that is a support for students in our schools, which is why I'm supporting this.
Thanks. And sorry, I'm sensing a potential back and forth here. I don't want to get too much into, I mean, debate is great, but if we could just try to keep it tight. Trustee Whitaker, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that, you know what, adding this is not changing that adult is in the school. It's not adding an adult. That vice principal is still there. The principal is still there. What you're doing is adding time to administration. I would prefer to add time to one-on-one instruction with students, right? It's that eye contact. It's that, you know, you're having a meltdown and I want to, you know, how do we help that? Right. And I get, you know what, I say it all the time. Principals are your pal. That's why it's called PAL at the end. That's how you remember to speak. They are your friends. Right. And I support the work that they're doing, but $23,000 across this district, right? Like, what are we doing? Buying them coffee? Come on, let's put more EAs in the system.
Okay, I'm going to make a comment and then I'll go to Elaine for close if she would like. So I support this. I mean, look, in this budget process, there was a proposal to put a significant amount towards VP time in elementary. We've also made some other VP reductions or PVP reductions, and I think part of this is a sign from the district, although albeit it is a small one. A sign from the board that we recognize the importance of the work that our VPs and our principals do in our school district as part of the education community. And I think it's important to recognize as well that this allows time in the day for vice principals to connect with our students. Jordan said it. This is about connecting with our students. So they could, and it allows them to collaborate and work with their colleagues. And it allows VPs time to work alongside their principals. I mean, this is about supporting the work of our vice principals. It's about supporting the work of individuals in the district to gain more development in their role and grow. And certainly, 23,434 is not a lot of money, but I hope that this can provide a symbolic and important perspective and signal to our principals and vice principals that we know how hard they're working. We appreciate how hard they're working, especially during such a challenging time. COVID is still with us, as Trustee Whitaker said, and their work is important, and it matters a considerable amount. So anything that we can do to add those bodies into the school and to support their work, engaging with our kids and collaborating and growing and developing in their role, I think is important for us to consider. So I'll go to Trustee or Elaine rather to close, and then we can go to a vote.
Sorry, Chair. I haven't had a chance to speak
Nicole,
to
I'm
it.
so sorry. I totally didn't see you. I think your hand blends in sometimes with your background. So
Probably
sorry. Go
does.
ahead.
I'm fairly pale Irish kind of person here. So
Sorry.
I'm like a
bright
ghost.
red, so I'm hard to miss. Go ahead.
It's like, is she here or is she not here?
Yeah.
No, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that, I think I understand the point around, although it's a small amount, it's a symbolic gesture, if you will, of appreciation, and I understand that, and I certainly respect that. I think really, what I hear some of my colleagues pointing out is really the impact of the investment that's being suggested. And so, what I hear my colleague Trustee Whitaker trying to point out is that 23,000 is more than half an EA salary, around half of an EA salary, for instance, and so that's like a part-time staff member. And we know that those kinds of direct supports have a significant impact on the classrooms and on the kids. And so, again, it's not about who we value more as a board. Like, I think we really have to move away from that discourse, because what happens is that it creates divisions, it creates mistrust. And I really don't think anyone around this board table is trying to suggest that one staff member is more important than another. What people are trying to get at is that there's impacts connected to how we choose to invest these dollars. And so the impact of 23,434 in the context of, for instance, funding another EA would be quite significant. And what Trustee Whitaker is trying to point out is that for VPs and our principals, this amount of money is not going to go far. It's not going to amount to a lot of their time, because they're more highly paid professionals in our system. And so, I just wanted to say that I think that's how we need to kind of reflect on these discussions, rather than creating this kind of what I think is a divide that is really not where we want to go. But that said, I do understand symbolic gestures and the importance of symbolic gestures as an indication of our appreciation for the work, the very good work that our VPs and our principals are doing.
Thanks, Nicole, and I appreciate your point, and I would agree with you. I think, at least in the sense that I don't think any trustees around this table are saying that any job is insignificant in this district. I haven't heard that from anybody, and I haven't heard any trustees say that this staff member is more important or less important than this. I don't think anyone's saying that. So I think we all understand that every job in this district is important, and every job matters. Everything contributes to public education. We're trying to put a budget together here, which has challenges. Elaine, go ahead for closing, please.
I don't think anyone expected that the $23,000 was going to go to 28 or 27 schools to buy a coffee. I think that it would be targeted, and I know that senior admin would be looking at probably helping out the school admin for the small schools of low enrollment that we just cut some funding for. So I expect it to be very targeted in what they're able to do with that. But again, I think it's, if we have this little small bit of money left over, I think it needs to address who's at the school opening and closing and trying to be the leaders of the school and help support everyone in the school. And so that's why I wanted to bring that forward tonight. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Elaine. That closes debate on the motion. So I am going, unless anyone has clarifying questions, but the debate is closed. Trustee Whitaker, I thought I saw your hand go up. Was it just a clarifying question? Sorry.
Well, no, it's not a clarifying question. I was just going to make the suggestion that I think that this $23,000 would go a lot farther if we were looking at it for the foundation.
Debate is closed, Trustee
Well,
Whitaker, sorry.
you can keep cutting me off, but I do think it is important that we consider the $23,000 for the foundation.
Trustee Whitaker, I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm trying to respect every individual trustee's right around the table to have a discussion and follow the rules of order that we've all agreed to. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm not trying to be adversarial. I'm trying to keep things moving. So debate is closed. So I'll call the vote on this addition. Again, the addition was $23,434 to VP time 2 elementary. All those in favor? And those opposed? And Trustee Whitaker and Nicole are opposed. The balance is in favor. And is there any further motions around the budget that we have in front of us before we go to third reading? Nicole, go ahead, please, and then I'll go to Trustee Whitaker after.
Yeah, I had a question around a particular line item in the budget, and I wondered through you to the Secretary Treasurer or the Superintendent whether we could get some clarity. So I'm specifically thinking of a line item that I raised last budget cycle around travel at the district level. So I believe it was under the district services and supply budget, and it was a travel budget that just under $1 million. And in this financial year, I believe it had been reduced to $727,897 and $688,000 and change had been spent. I wondered if we could get some clarity around whether there's any, whether staff have considered the possibility of reducing that line item further to help us fund some of the other lower cost reductions that are being proposed tonight. For instance, the career coordinator and the reading recovery coordinator positions is sort of what I had in mind. So, and that would be just to give you a dollar amount of what I wondered if you'd considered, just over 200,000. I believe it's 233, but let me just get my calculator working here. 223,525 would be the amount that would be needed to fund those two positions.
I guess that is a question to Kim.
Sure. So this is not a savings consideration that came forward throughout the budget season. So staff has not done an analysis on that. We did put on the asks and the savings lists, everything that we were considering and that we heard we should be considering. So that has not been considered in this budget.
Okay, thank you, Nicole, for follow-up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Through you to the Secretary Treasurer, the amount of the reduction from the previous budget year, what was that analysis based on? So it looks like over a $200,000 reduction from 2019 to 2020. And then in 2021, 22, we were looking at about 200,000 less than the previous financial year. What kind of analysis was undertaken in order to determine that you had some wiggle room there?
I don't know the line item that you're speaking of, and this is new information tonight or a new question, so I am unable to answer any sort of analysis question about what you're asking. I'm sorry, I'd have to bring that back.
Through the chair, to the Secretary Treasurer, if I may follow up one more time.
Yep, go ahead.
I wonder if any of the finance staff on the call might be able to add some context or some further information to help answer the question.
Kim, over to you if you want to direct.
I can text while you're considering your next conversation, but I would say that we have not considered that as a line item in the budget.
Okay, Nicole, any further follow-up? Nope, okay. Trustee Whitaker, I saw your hand go up before we go to the bylaw reading, so over to you.
Yeah, and if I'm doing this wrong, you can let me know, but I would like to have, oh, I can't scroll up on that. That's Kim's screen. I would like to put, I do that every time.
And you too.
Can we scroll up for a second, Kim? Just, can you go up to the reserve section? Thank you. Yeah, so what I would like to see happen is 40,000 put in, taken from reserve with the understanding that this would be for the foundation donation that we've been discussing previously too, and that if that donation doesn't come to fruition, that money would go directly back to the reserve. So it's not really affecting the budget, sort of leaves it as a gray zone. And I understand that there is that staffing thing, and I'm not talking about that. What I would like to see happen is that we have enough of a commitment that people can move forward to see if they can get that donation. And you know, in the meantime, move forward with your staffing without the 1.8 there, because I do believe that's not a very difficult change to make. You could put a note for the 15 schools that in 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, we may be able to reinstate that strings piece. But I think it's fair when people are coming forward to donate over, now that I understand it, it's like $120,000. They're only looking for us to pay for 25% of that. We would just be very foolish to turn that down. And I know it's not a for sure. So for me, I think if we were to just make the commitment that if that money came forward, that we do have this piece of reserve, it's $40,000 of a $1.9 million reserve, that I don't think it's a big stretch. It allows it allows us to continue with our budget while others can go to see if they can get that donation. So I don't know if this is the time to do that. I think it is.
This is totally the appropriate. Sorry, I think this is totally the
I do.
appropriate time.
And I think it would, and I think it's much easier now. And I thank everyone for us getting through the other budget discussions so that this has just become an easier conversation. So I guess that's my motion, is to put that in reserve. I don't know how to do all the other bits in the motion, that it's a placeholder.
Sure. So your motion would just be to take the 40,000 from the 1.9 million reserves, have it put in place of Nicole's previous motion, which was the balance that we started off with. Do we have a seconder for that? Nicole seconded. And Nicole, do you want to speak to it?
Yeah, I would. I guess I would say two things. If that accomplishes what we started out to do this at the beginning of this meeting, then wonderful. And if it doesn't, then I will make another proposal that hopefully will get it done. But let's start with this, and if we can do it in the context of surplus and with a specific dollar amount, then great.
Okay, great. And just for not really, I mean, yeah, and sorry, and this was just for staff who are taking notes. You can just consider that we have brought forward the previous motion that we referred. We're talking about it now. Let's just do that. So, okay. So just so we get an understanding, the idea is to take 40,000 from the $1.9 million reserve, added in here for the elementary strings deposit until April 30th. Oh, perfect. Kim is writing down almost like what I was saying it. Any further discussion on this? I'll put myself on the table. I think it's kind of innovative or interesting. I'm not sure. I'm kind of short on words. We've got a $1.9 million reserve that we haven't touched. So 40,000 from that is not really all that much. I am concerned about the staffing piece because I think staff still have to move forward because we still have that 1.81 in the removal space. And so I'm challenged by putting any of our staff in the same position, even remotely, like what we had last year, because I know how hard that is on the system. And even though it's only 1.81, it still creates ripples in the system when we lurch back and forth. So, I mean, I appreciate the idea. I'm not sure at this point. So I'm open to any thoughts that my colleagues have. Elaine?
Okay, so from a nuts and bolts moving forward position, if the budget stayed exactly as it was right now at a balanced position with the 40,000 in reserve and we didn't do anything, is it not prudent to let people go forward and do whatever it is they're going to do and then bring this conversation back to the board after the budget's been passed to take reserves from it in order to do something in a future time if this comes to fruition, rather than screwing up the packages to the school, the staffing packages. We would proceed as if it was still a budget line item, and then revisit it once this miracle money showed up. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not going to show up, but it's right now, it's such a pie, and well, I won't call it a pie in the sky because you never know what's going to happen out there. But it leaves the process in such a limbo that I can't support it doing it this way. So I'm just wondering if the board would table the motion until May and then revisit it if the funding came through, and then add the packaging in after. I know it would again mess with the staffing packages, but it's going to be worse if you, I don't know, if you hold this out there as a carrot for the next month, having these conversations, and it is only really 3 weeks that you're having these conversations. So I can't support it the way it's happening now, because it's just too out there in the nebulous for me.
Yeah, thanks, Elaine. Yeah, it is a chicken or the egg. Do we need to have the 40,000 before the rest can come, or what? So it's a good question. Maybe Nicole has an answer for us because she's got her hand up and looking like she has something to say. Go ahead, Nicole.
Well, I'll try to clarify. So, and maybe suggest a way forward. So I think a possible way forward here is to say, and again, I'm going back to the original motion we discussed, and the extent to which it's problematic to allocate a specific amount. An alternative would be that we say as a board, we pass a motion tonight, or we say that assuming conversations go well between the superintendent and the foundation, and the foundation is willing to, it confirms it's willing to fund the balance, that maybe what we do tonight is pass a motion saying that we would contribute, in that case, 20% of what would be required, and that the board would take either we say where we would take it from, or we simply make the commitment that we will contribute 20% if the donation is confirmed by the end of the month. That would be another alternative where we don't need to concern ourselves with balancing or potentially interfering with balancing the budget. But at the same time, we've made a commitment, which I think shows our good faith to the foundation.
So just confirming, the elementary strings reduction of 1.81 FTE is 208,815. 20% of that is 41,763.4. We're talking about 40,000, but I just want to make sure we have the numbers accurate, because if we just, again, hypothesizing, if we agree on 40 and then we go and someone says, well, no, it was 20%, 40 is not 20%, where does that leave us? Nicole, do you have any idea on that? So, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm just, what I'm suggesting is an alternative that would not require us to take a specific amount of the 40,000 from the budget tonight, but simply make a percentage or commit a percentage. Maybe it's 19.5%, maybe it's, it's 20. I'm saying 20 is a kind of just a nice round number. I appreciate would be 41,000 rather than 40. But the point being that we would make the commitments to contribute that 20% by the end of the month, assuming that the foundation is, confirms its support for the remainder. That might be a way of getting the ball rolling and getting this done at the same time as not affecting the bottom line, so to speak, and the balance of the budget tonight.
Now, forgive my, notice I'm taking up time here, but I'm trying to follow my way through this. Kim, is it, and Nicole, feel free to jump in if I'm getting this wrong, but is it sufficient to just say we want to, if the board decided they wanted to cover 20% until April 30th, do we need to have that specific number in our budget, or can we, I'm assuming we have to, because we're passing a budget, we have to have those details in the budget. Are you, or am I missing
you're having a
something?
discussion tonight about committing money potentially until the end of April in your third reading of your budget bylaw. So I would say it needs to be in the budget. But I don't think the amount, you could say up to 41,000 or something like that, but I don't think we need to get tied up in the amount, but I do think we need an amount in the budget to show the intent of the board.
Sure, that's where I was going, so I appreciate that.
That's great.
Thanks for the clarification. Nicole, was I?
That's great. I mean, that's really the crux of the issue. Do we need to reflect it here or don't we? So no, that's great. Thank you for clarifying that.
Good, thanks. I found my way there eventually. Any other comments or questions, concerns? So I guess the motion would be then that the board commit to 20% or to holding 20% of the elementary strings budget as a deposit until April 30th, 2022 in anticipation of a donation or something around
I'm
those.
confused.
Maybe the individual motion is actually fine. Trustee Whitaker, sorry, I know you were trying
Yeah,
to get in there.
you just confused me there. So are we?
Yeah, maybe I did. I'm not helping at all.
Okay. Because
Nicole, sorry, maybe you can straighten me out.
Well, I'm just wondering if we, I'm just going to suggest that we go back to the original motion and just tweak the first line.
Okay, let me just pop it up here. So,
Yeah.
So we've all got it. Nicole, do you have it in front of you? Maybe we can.
Yeah.
So the original motion was that the Board of Education of School District 61 direct the superintendent to allocate 40,023 to elementary strings. So would your motion be to allocate 20%? Would that be the change?
Yeah, and I think that would be the simplest change, and then subject to the Secretary Treasurer's advice about the wording of that first line, so that it makes Secretary Treasurer's life a little easier. So through you, I guess, to the chair, or rather through the chair to the Secretary Treasurer, would that wording suffice for your purposes?
Kim?
Yeah, just a moment.
Yep.
So you're still directing the superintendent or the amount that, okay, so we have a motion on the floor, right?
yes, my motion was on the floor. So are we
Did
dropping?
anybody second it?
I did.
It did get seconded, so I'm sorry. Thank you for calling me back to that, Kim.
Okay. And
what's
so we're
what's
going
the
to
motion?
allocate
Sorry, can we-
$40,000. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Remind us of the motion, so we all know what we're talking about, because I think I've taken us down a bad path.
So the
I can
Board of
amend
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Why don't I amend it then, so we can get back to where we were, if that's okay, through the chair?
I would just like Kim to remind us where we're at.
Sure.
Right now, we have a motion on the floor, more or less, to add 40,000 more risk or use of reserve until April 30th in anticipation of a donation to cover the remainder of music. So I don't know if we say 20% up to a maximum of 40,000 or what we would like to say.
Okay, thanks. So this was the 40,000 coming from the 1.9 reserve. Thank you. Trustee Whitaker, I saw your hand shot up. I know Nicole has a amendment. I understand folks are probably getting a little bit antsy because we want to move forward. There's still a lot to go on the agenda. So I do want to try to tie this up. So Trustee Whitaker, do you have an
Yeah.
amendment?
No, I don't have an amendment. I'm just going to speak to this because I think that all of this amendment of trying to come up with the number or whatnot, I think what I've heard from the Secretary Treasurer and what I've heard from others about the money or the possible donation, and from my own experience with getting donations, I like that we don't have to be bang on the number. We don't really need the 20%. When you are doing this type of fundraising, what they are looking for is a commitment that that's going to happen. They don't want to make a donation and then, oh, we're not going to do that. And then what happens to the money? It creates a lot of issues for the donor foundation as well as for our foundation, because those monies are usually targeted. So I don't want to, I'm hoping that we aren't going to get all tangled up in what is the exact amount. What we are trying to do here is to set the commitment so that people can go out and solicit that donation and go, look, the board has committed that. It's no different than when we've been selling land. They're looking for a commitment that to move this to the next level. And I think that absolutely this would come back to the board for another motion and more discussion once there was some action or some decision, or that money was coming or wasn't coming. We would look at it again. I think that we really need to focus here on the goal is to send forward a message that we can continue to try to attract the donation. Anything further than that is too much.
Okay. Thanks, Trustee Whitaker. Nicole, I know you had possibly something you wanted to add. I'm not sure if you're still there. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm waiting to see what's typed on the screen, but I'm not fussed either way. You know, what I care about is that we identify a contribution, that the board commits to it tonight, so that we can move forward discussions with the foundation for the balance of the funding by the end of April. And if however we achieve that tonight, I will be happy with that. So I'm fine to wait to see what the Secretary Treasurer comes up with in terms of wording.
Okay. Kim, do you need us to wait until you update what's on the screen, or do you need some support from?
Am I sharing a Word document right now?
Yeah.
Yep.
So does this wording work?
So this looks like the wording from Nicole's original motion, I think.
Yeah,
No,
it's a
it's
version of
quite
that.
different. It's quite different.
Oh, is it? Sorry.
Yeah. Can I just,
I like this wording better than the original one, but can I just ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Elaine. Go ahead. I know you've had your hand up and I've kind of missed you. I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Go ahead.
While this is very commendable that this is going on, I still have issues because, like I say, we've been down this road before. So it has to be really, really clear that this is a one-year thing. It's not an ongoing thing. It has to be appropriate funding. It can't just be, there's lots of, and just because the funding is even given to us doesn't mean we could use it, will use it, should use it. So I think that the superintendent and the Secretary Treasurer have to be given the authority that it is an appropriate funding mechanism that they would accept. How is it going to be paid to the district? Are we going to be waiting and having paid out staff because they're waiting for more donations to come in? So there's lots of issues at play here, which is why we don't use donations for ongoing staffing costs. So lots of things in play here. So although I think it's a very noble effort, there's still too much here for me not that I cannot support this at this time. Like I say, if everything was known, I might, but there's too much unknown for me. And like I say, we did this a long time ago, and I don't want to go down that road again.
Okay, thanks. Jordan, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ryan. I am not comfortable with this because I don't know anything about what this potential funding source is, what the requirements are. To me, if there is, you know, a particular fund we should be applying for, then that information should be brought forward and it should be in its own very detailed motion. This just feels way too nebulous for me. You know, we don't know what the requirements are. You know, we don't know the timing for the money, how that would work with staffing. You know, it's a one-time donation. I don't know. I personally have not been provided with the information to the point where I feel like I could have any confidence in what's moving forward. So I appreciate the effort and I love that there's some problem solving going on. And I hope that we do look at reinvigorating the foundation, which I think should be the body that takes on this sort of project. And in the meantime, I'm not sure that I want, you know, to be dedicating a whole lot of time to chasing money for you know, this kind of a long shot type deal here that, you know, is bridging for one potential year. So I'm not going to support the motion.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. Okay, Nicole, and then Trustee Whitaker, and then I'm going to put myself on the list after that. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, so I guess I would say that the new wording is it's another way to say what was in the original motion. So I'm fine with it. So I think what it does is it sets out the amount to use from reserve. It sets a deadline and for us to confirm the donation, and it directs staff where the money is going to go if that donation isn't forthcoming. And I think that you know, the point is that there is some work that needs to be done behind the scenes in order to confirm the donation and to get particulars of when payment can be made and so on. And I think that's for our superintendent to do. There is a unique opportunity that we have to have some funding for 1 year. I think the motion makes it clear that it's for the 2022-23 financial year. There is no commitment, you know, beyond that, and there is no. We're not asking the superintendent to look for further funding in further years. This is really a stopgap in order to ensure that we don't have to cancel an entire program while we undertake, hopefully, a program review. So really, this is about finding a solution for 1 year that can save a program from being cut entirely. And so I hope that in light of that, we can put our trust in the superintendent to engage in the necessary discussions with the foundation to confirm what they're willing to donate.
Okay, I just want to note it's 8:23. We still have quite a bit of agenda. I'm going to allow a quick comment. Trustee Whitaker, I know this is something you moved, and so I'm going to let you close now if you can. Try to keep it succinct because I would like to move on if we can. I think we've all talked a lot about this motion.
Thanks. I appreciate you giving me the close there, but I did also acknowledge that you wanted to speak. So did you want to
No,
speak?
I'm okay. I'll let it go. I don't want to drag it on. I don't think I have anything new to add. So go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure. So I heard from Trustee Leonard that, and I think Trustee Waters, that there wasn't enough information. And so I just want to say the information is that we would have information by April 30th. And I've also heard Trustee Duncan say this is a stopgap. I don't believe that at all. I think that the beauty of this particular motion and this, where, you know what, it leaves all of the doors open, all of the windows open for opportunity. But most importantly, what this does is this puts the fate of this program in the hands of the public. It takes the responsibility for making this program run outside of this board and gives an opportunity, if the public is there and they really absolutely want this program there, they're going to step forward and do that work and come up with this money. If they don't, the program is gone. And that's just all there is to it. And I really, I'm challenged that we wouldn't give the public and those people who have that, that strings as close to their heart, not give them the opportunity. If there is an opportunity for $120,000 for 1 year for us to have that discussion, what a way to start up this foundation. What a way, if they really do want that programming, for them to understand that they may possibly have to earn and fundraise that money through there, or give it up, right? It creates the reality of the funding for those that are using it. And I don't think it is a stopgap. It is putting the program in the responsibility of those that are using it and are passionate about it, to see if they can make it work. And I totally support this, because I'm not willing to take that away. I'm not willing to take away that bit of hope that these people think that they can work that hard and they can get that money. And I'm certainly not going to turn the money away.
Okay, thank you. So I'll end debate. I do, there's been a bit of conversation, and before we just move away from this, I want to give staff just an opportunity, because I don't really think we've fully appreciated perhaps the impact of the staffing stuff. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but I'm wondering if the superintendent can just, for my edification, and I'm sorry, but just help us understand the staffing implications if we were to do something like this. The staffing packages went out, all of that stuff. So Deb, can you help us understand that, just so we're all clear?
Yeah, I'll pass it over to Colin. We are talking about non-enrolling teachers, so I think he's best positioned to share.
Thank you.
I believe that there are approximately 6 or 7 teachers, although the total FTE is only 1.87. There are a number of staff members who would be impacted. And because staffing will be completed at the first phase in the coming 2 weeks, a lot will depend on the individual decisions of those 6 or 7 teachers, their areas of qualification, and whether they are willing to wait to see how this motion would develop if approved in terms of the securing of the funding. And some may decide if they are qualified and able to post into other positions in order to secure employment for themselves, may do so, and thereby that would mean that another teacher may be made access to needs. So a lot would depend on, like I say, the individual conditions for those teachers, the decisions that they make. And although if things were resolved by early May, there would be some potential to reverse those decisions, perhaps. It could lead to some level of disruption across a large number of schools, because as you know, those 6 or 7 teachers work across 15 different schools.
Okay, thank you, Colin, for that. All right, we have discussed this a lot. I really appreciate what everyone brought to the table in this. It was fulsome. So I'm going to call the question on this motion. All of those in favor, please signify. Those opposed? And abstentions? Sorry, Jordan, I didn't catch your vote.
I'm voting in opposition. Sorry, Chair.
Okay, that's okay. So the motion is defeated with Trustee Whitaker, Nicole, and Angie in favor, and the balance opposed. So we're going to go to C2, budget bylaw readings, third reading. Before I jump into the third reading, I want to just offer Kim an opportunity to make some comments.
Sorry, I just want to fix this before I forget. And so because I just want to make sure that you've got the right bylaw amount too when you read it out, Brian. And that'll be this number here, the 268,456,989, if that's okay. Yeah, so thank you for the opportunity to make some comments. First of all, really appreciate the work of the board. I can. It's been 2 years in a row of tough discussions and hard work at the board table. And I really want to commend the trustees for doing this hard work and really committing to it this year and all the time you put in on the committee. Really difficult decisions. I guess what I just want to do is I know we've been sort of talking about each line item as we go over the course of 2 nights, and I really just want to impart on the board what this might look like for a school principal or a school vice principal on the ground. We've certainly taken $64,000 in low enrollment. We've taken $559,000 in collaboration time from the budget. We've taken $800,000 from their services and supplies budgets. We've taken $654,000 from custodial in elementary schools. And we've taken or not given an intended $326,000 for VP admin time, but $23,000. And so that's $2.4 million that we'll be asking principals to do without on the ground. And so I just want to make sure that we're all aware of that, and that if this bylaw passes for this amount with these changes, that we're certainly thinking about elementary schools when we get to year end, if there is any residual surplus. I think this will be a very important discussion. This is highly impactful on our elementary school principals and vice principals. So I just wanted to give a complete picture of what I see as the impact, and I want to thank you for that time.
Can I just clarify, that's our students, not our, I mean, while I appreciate principals will be feeling the effects, it's our students that will be feeling
Okay,
it.
I'm not gonna, yeah, sorry, we're not gonna debate staff. So we are moving into third reading of the recommended motion. Kim, just before I go, am I reading the 268456989? Is that
That's correct.
Bylaw reading? Thank you.
Yeah.
At the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, 2020-2023 annual budget bylaw in the amount of $268,456,989 be read a third time, passed and adopted the 7th day of April 2022, and that the Secretary, Treasurer, and Board Chair be authorized to sign, seal, and execute this bylaw on behalf of the board. Do I have a mover for this motion? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Jordan. Any discussion? Sorry, let me just, my Zoom kind of went kerfuddled on me. I want to make sure I can see everybody. Okay. Oh, thanks, Kim, or whoever did that. Okay, seeing and hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor of third reading of the budget bylaw, please signify. And those opposed? And that is Trustee Whitaker and Nicole opposed, the balance in favor. Okay, and now we can move to business arising from the budget bylaw. The first motion, that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, allocate local capital reserve for the purpose of 2022-2023 network infrastructure year 2 of 5, 502, 850,000. 2, 2022-2023 capital assessment purchase from operating, 886,005. 3, 2022-2023 Sundance Bank reopening classroom 2 capital costs, 230,000. And 4, 2022-2023 purchase of 1219 North Park as part of the Caledonia Master Agreement, 1,089,000. Do I have a mover? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Tom. Any discussion? Nicole?
Yeah, just a question of clarification through the chair to the Secretary Treasurer about the Caledonia piece. Just wanting to clarify the purchase amount and whether the Secretary Treasurer can in particular just clarify that, was there always, did we always intend to have a transfer of funds, I guess is really what I want to clarify. Was there always going to be this transfer of funds between our district and presumably one of the parties to the agreement?
Thanks, Nicole. Kim?
Yeah, through the negotiation process and property was intended to be exchanged. And throughout negotiations, that particular item had changed from a land exchange, which would have required a recording of a liability anyway. change to an outright purchase of the land parcel through the master agreement approved by the board.
Nicole?
And so again, through the chair to the secretary treasurer. So when did this come to the board for approval? Or are you saying through the chair to the secretary treasurer that the bylaw reading that the board approved allowed the secretary treasurer to exercise the board's discretion on our behalf?
Kim?
The master agreement within which the purchase and sale agreement was considered is part of the master agreement approved by the board and not at the discretion of the secretary treasurer.
Okay, Nicole, further follow-up. Oh, sorry, I'm going to go to Elaine first, actually. Sorry, I'm just going to go to Elaine. We can share the glory. Elaine, go ahead.
Yeah, part of our discussions at the board table was always what we were getting for the land from Vic High, less than $1 million. So this is rounded little up from $1 million, but this was always the amount that we were told was going to come up out of the amount that we received for the land sale.
Okay. Thank you. Nicole?
Yeah, I guess the point of confusion for me was that I understood that it would amount to an exchange of land and that there wouldn't be actually any money exchange with the exception of the $1. And then in addition to, of course, the ground lease amount. So I wanted to clarify where this was and how it came forward for board approval. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Nicole. Kim, any further follow-up or clarification,
No
or are
further
you?
comment from me? No.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? And that is Nicole opposed, the balance in favor. Next, that the Board of Education of School District Number 61 reduce 1 FTE Assistant Manager at Facility Services and 1 FTE Human, oh, wait, I guess, oh no, yeah, 1 FTE Human Resources Services position at Tulmy Board Office in 2023, 2024, or 2024, 2025 fiscal year, dependent on attrition retirement of existing staffing. I'm assuming we're going to need to shift this motion now, given the Human Resource Services position has been removed. But Kim, you can help us with the wording on that.
Yes, I think the motion that should be removed should strike the 1.0 HR position, just to remove it from the motion altogether.
Thank you. So can we just take that by consensus, board? We'll just strike the 1.0 FTE Human Resource Services position. Are we okay with that?
So
I'm not
moved.
seeing any, okay, I'm not seeing any opposition to just removing that. So sorry, Trustee Whitaker, are you opposed to
I have a
just
question.
removing that piece?
No, I just have a question.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear on this one first before we go forward. So we're going to remove that. That's struck by consensus. So now we have the main motion moved by Elaine, seconded by Tom. Thank you. Trustee Whitaker, over to you.
So my question is why are we passing a motion for next year's budget right now?
Kim? That was kind of muffled for me, so but maybe you heard it. Kim?
I did not hear it.
Okay, and can you try again? It was really
Yeah.
muffled.
Sorry, my computer's getting tired. So my question is why are we passing this motion now, which is for next year's budget?
Okay, Kim?
I believe it was to state a commitment around employee reduction or further savings in year 2 in keeping with your 3-year rolling budget. It's not necessary in order to balance the budget next year or the year after. It's still at that board's will. It's a message of intent. The same way sometimes I think in past you have allocated a current year surplus to 2 years down the road to help balance that budget. So I believe the board has done it before with surplus. And so it was more of a statement of intent than balancing the budget, which is the board of the time in 23-24 to do.
And just a reminder that the Director of Facilities, Chuck Morris, did indicate that this position would, I think he said it would be leaving in attrition in 2023, 2024. Sorry, I'm just going to go to...
Can I
Okay, sorry,
continue
Trustee
my
Whitaker, go
point
ahead.
of clarification? Just
Yep.
because the last line on this motion says dependent on attrition and retirement of existing staff. So to me, it's kind of like, well, we're passing this motion, but not really. So I guess I'm concerned about this. I would, you know, regardless of attrition and retirement, are we doing this or are we not, right? So what if an employee says, well, I'm not going to retire this year, then even though the board passed this motion, we're not going to do that? Is that what would happen?
This is a statement of intent based on information given by the Director of Facilities. The board at the time of debating 3 readings of a bylaw for 23, 24, 24, 25 can rescind this or change it or consider some other amount or some other position. The board at that time will debate that budget and will be not tied to this motion if it wants to rescind it.
So this is not binding. This is just a statement of intent for future years.
Okay.
Trustee Whitaker, I'm sorry. I'm just going to go to Elaine. She's
No,
had her
I'm
hand
going
up
to
for-
call, I believe that this motion is out of order is why I'm asking these questions, because I don't believe it is appropriate. Trust me, I totally agree with this, and I'm going to jack it up a couple of full-time positions. But I don't believe that this board should be binding or passing motions to bind the next board, especially when we are so close. And trust me, I completely agree that we should be sending off lots of fireworks that said, hello, we are going to need to cut senior administration and upper management positions. But I don't think that we should be setting it right now to bind a future board, especially when it doesn't actually do that. If these employees, if the only reason we're going to cut them is that they choose to retire, you know what, lots of people aren't retiring when they say they're going to retire because the cost of living is so high. So I'm challenged with this motion, and I think we should just, it should be called out of order, and we just don't pass it.
So I'm going to make a ruling. It's not out of order. Staff have determined that this does not bind a future board. This is a statement of intent by this current board for future budget years. So I am making a determination that it is not out of order. Elaine.
In our discussions on Monday, this came up in both of these positions, and like we've dealt. The human resources one has been dealt with earlier this evening, but the facilities position, we talked about not losing the thread for future budgets. And this is what the intent of this is, as far as I can see, is not losing that for next year in the budget process. So you don't lose it, like has been said before. Well, how do we know that what they said, and how do we know, where it is in the budget? Well, if there's a motion attached to something, it's always easy to find. So staff would bring this forward as a reduction, and then the next year, and it'll either be in 23, 24 or 24, 25. And then the staff can say this, the budget in this year talked about it, they put it forward, and then you can choose to do it or not do it. But it's a place to park it so that it's not lost in the process. And that's what we talked about on Monday. And this is how it's brought forward to us so we don't lose it.
Thanks, Elaine. I was going to say similar. Nicole, I saw your hand up. I just want to make sure I get to you. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe I imagined it. Okay, I clearly imagined it. Any other discussion on this motion?
I would like to
Trustee
amend the
Whitaker.
motion then. I would like to amend it to say, where is it here? That we will assistant manager at facilities and 2 full-time employees at full-time management positions. If we're making a commitment for the future, then let's be real. I would like to see 2 of those assistant manager positions removed. If not
And now
more.
I am going to call that out of order because it significantly changes the motion. The motion as it states is specifically focused on an assistant manager at facility services. Adding 2 additional management staff to this motion by Robert's Rules of Order and any other typical rules of procedure. Sorry, Trustee Whitaker, you can challenge me once I'm finished, but I'm just presenting my rationale. I am ruling the amendment out of order because it does significantly alter the intent and spirit of this motion. We have a challenge. So as folks, a challenge to the chair has been risen. So what will happen now is Trustee Whitaker will present her rationale for challenging the chair. I will present my rationale for coming to my decision. The board will vote to sustain the ruling of the chair or to defeat the ruling of the chair or to move past it. So Trustee Whitaker, over to you on your rationale for challenging the ruling of the chair.
So I'm going to challenge the ruling of the chair based on the chair's argument for keeping this on the agenda, because it's just a placeholder. It doesn't really matter, and the board can change it later. If that is true, then as you have told me that this isn't really affecting anything and it's just to send a message, I think it's really important that the message go forward that the board's going to change. And it's highly likely that we'll be looking for 2 positions. So we may as well send that warning shot off now.
Right. And I think we should always be very careful when we're talking about staff positions that we don't use military language to discuss their work, like firing off shots. I think that's probably not helpful. But in any event, the reason why I ruled the amendment out of order is not because this is a placeholder for next year or the following year. It is because the amendment significantly altered and changed the spirit and intent of the motion. Trustees, this motion before us, as it is laid out, specifically talks about reducing 1.0 FTE assistant manager at facility services. This discussion came to us from the director of facilities. We're well aware of the discussions that those came before us, and we've all had time to consider. A new motion to add 2 additional manager positions, which we've not talked about, we've not discussed, and which significantly alter the spirit and intent of this motion is, in my opinion, out of order. So I will now call on trustees to vote to sustain or not sustain the ruling of the chair. Those voting to sustain the ruling of the chair, please signify. And those opposed to sustaining the ruling of the chair, please signify. And those abstaining. Okay, so we have Anne voting against sustaining, Nicole abstaining, pardon me, and the balance in favor of sustaining the ruling of the chair. So the motion is as it is. I am now going to call the question on this motion. Okay, all those in favor of the motion on the floor that the Board of Education reduce 1.0 FTE assistant manager at facility services for the years listed. All those in favor, please signify. Those opposed. Trustee Whitaker is opposed, the balance in favor. Thank you, trustees. Appreciate it and appreciate moving through that. Next motion, that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, approve $2,300,000 of the June 30, 2022 unrestricted operating surplus to be carried forward and applied towards the 2022-2023 projected deficit. Can I have a mover for this motion, please? Moved by Elaine, seconded by Nicole. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question on this motion. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you, trustees. Now, I believe we have a motion from Trustee Duncan that the Board of Education of School District 61 direct the superintendent to carry out a music program review during the 2022-2023 school year in consultation with the GBTA, music teachers, and appropriate members of our learning community to identify options and make recommendations to the Board of Education regarding the provision of music programs in the school district with a special focus on access and funding. I almost got that all out. Nicole, over to you as the mover. Nicole's moved. Do we have a seconder for this? Trustee Whitaker, thank you. Nicole, you can motivate as the mover. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I think we've discussed this on and off throughout the last couple of meetings, but really I just wanted to bring a motion to get a commitment to undertake that program review. I think it's well and good to have sort of, informal discussions about how we might fund music programs moving forward and how we might increase or improve accessibility. But I think really what it requires is a more formal process and bringing all the relevant stakeholders to the table to undertake that work. And I'm very hopeful indeed that we will get some fabulous recommendations that'll help us to move forward in a more positive way on this and to preserve, hopefully, music programs that have developed and are really robust and so well subscribed and enjoyed by our students in the future.
Thank you very much, Nicole. Trustee Whitaker as a seconder, you can motivate, and then we'll go to other trustees.
I think I have already discussed why I think it's really important, and that, you know, I think when we do these reviews, that it allows for creativity and different minds from different perspectives with different biases, I guess, actually, as to, you know, what we could do differently and how we could be imaginative and creative for our students.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? Elaine?
So during the budget committee process, we asked Associate Superintendent Caldwell to meet with all of the music teachers and the principals for all of the middle schools to talk about the music program. It was a review of sorts, and ultimately they came back with no changes, no recommendations, knowing that it was on the budget cut list. So I'm not sure in the wording of this if something's to happen, if it has enough teeth. I suggested a working committee for last September. I suggested it in June. It was put off. I suggested it in September, that a working committee could actually have gotten down to get into how to deliver the program differently in order to try and save some dollars and go forward. So I can't support this because it doesn't have enough teeth to actually, in my mind, accomplish anything. Because we've just had a review and there was a very lengthy presentation that was in one of our packages at the budget committee. And it was just basically showing us all of the things that were done in different districts that we couldn't do in our district. So it would have to have more teeth for me to be able to support this.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on this motion from trustees? Seeing and hearing none, I will go back to Nicole to close. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've heard different perspectives around the table. I understand that there's some strong views around the need to cut these programs, and you know, I think, you know, there is a diversity of opinion about that. And I've also heard strong views about the need to grow the programs further and increase accessibility at other schools. So I think what we have to remember is that when we try to do something that we call a review in the context of a budget discussion, that it creates an impediment, a structural impediment to kind of free-flowing ideas and dialogue. It's more of a situation where we as the employer are coming to staff and saying, you know, how do you think we can cut your jobs? And it just that's about odd dynamic, and it's not one I think that really is conducive to getting the dialogue and the free flowing ideas that are really needed in a review of this type. So really, what I'm suggesting is a process that I'm confident will result in more free flowing dialogue from everybody around the table, and hopefully some creative solutions that will increase our students' access to these programs, which we know are, you know, extremely beneficial. And I won't go into all the benefits of music because we've heard it, and I hope we've heard it loud and clear. There are many. Yeah, I'm just trying to provide a process to do that. So thanks for letting me close, Chair.
Thanks, Nicole. Elaine, we have closed. Is it a comment or sorry, a question?
It's not a question, but it was made to seem like I want to cut the programs, and that's not the intent. I would like to save the programs by doing them in a different way. And so that is my ultimate goal in having a working group and a very substantive review.
Okay.
So just want to put that up.
Thanks, Elaine. I know that. Thank you. Okay. So the motion on the floor, I will call the question on the motion on the floor again, which is to carry out a music program review during 2022-2023. All of those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by raising your hands. Those opposed? And the motion is defeated. Trustee Whitaker, Trustee Duncan, and Angie in favor, the balance opposed. We have left, I believe, and I don't have them written down, but I believe Jordan brought some motions forward. So perhaps Jordan can remind us. I think one was about the foundation, and I'm totally blanking on the
I'm
other
gonna
one.
move both of them with the board's indulgence to the board meeting, because
So, okay, refer
I'm also
to
glad
the
we
board
started
meeting.
at 5 because this is some
Gratitude.
pretty serious heavy lifting here, and at 9 o'clock I'm not in the best state to be properly motivating and debating these motions, but they are important and they are connected to budget, and so I'll bring them forward to the board meeting.
Sure. And I just remembered the second one was the advocacy or needs budget piece. So thank you. Okay, so the motion is to refer both of those to the April 25th board meeting. Do I have a seconder? Nicole, second. Any discussion? I'm not seeing or imagining any other than support. So all those in favor? And that is unanimous. Do we have, I'm going to look to staff to help me out. Do we have anything else that was added, or trustees, maybe you can remind me? It has been a long night. I hope I haven't missed anything. Nope. Okay, great. So we'll now move to adjournment. That the meeting adjourn. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Nicole, seconded by Angie. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you all at the ops meeting. Have a good night.